What's up? Ghost Fictions is here and we're back again. This is the fourth part of a story where Issei left and became the fallen dragon emperor. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into part 4. A week later after the last part, Issei was reading the newspaper and was amused by the main headline. The Ashikabi of the North and East Ally. Is the Sekirei game over already? Heh. People go crazy for so many stories made up without gathering all of the facts. Issei said with a light chuckle while enjoying his morning with some coffee, until he saw Reha humming a small tune as she played with her chakrams and sent them at the targets, which made Issei smile that Reha was taking her training seriously. Issei then saw Kusano walk into the room, yawning a bit with her hair really out of place with massive bed hair due to Kusano feeling really rested for such a long time. Issei smiled at this and called out to her. "Morning Ku-chan." Issei said, making Kusano blush at the nickname before blushing at a reflection in the living room mirror, causing her to try and fix it until Issei calmed her down. "It's fine Ku-chan. Come here and let me fix it for you." Issei said before Kusano blushed even more that her face was red as a freshly ripe apple until she sat in front of Issei, who had a hairbrush in his hand and began to brush it, making Kusano whimper in delight at how gentle Issei was with her long hair. "Thank you," Kusano said before Issei replied. "No problem. It's not the first time I've actually brushed long hair. My mother had short hair, but a friend of mine had really long hair and bad bed hair, so she asked me to brush her hair. It was fun, really, especially since it was in good practice." Issei said before Kusano looked at him and asked. "Is this girl one of your ex-girlfriends or the one who looks like a vampire? The vampire and Gasper are adorable. But wasn't she a dude?" "She was, but thanks to some magic and a special device, she was able to be her true self. Gasper was so adorable that it was a shock when I learned she was a he at first, but I got used to it." "So why did Gasper want to be a girl?" "Gasper was transgender since she felt like she was a girl in a boy's body. Plus, a friend of hers got Gasper into dressing up in female cosplay, which actually made her happy when she was a he. I didn't mind it since I've seen a couple of folks who look in different ways. Like how I know most Sekirei are bisexual," Issei said, shocking Kusano before Issei explained. "Trust me when I say that many of the girls haven't exactly hidden their interests like Matsu from across the street. She's literally bisexual and loves to do experiments on both guys and girls. Heck, Yuzume is basically a female nudist version of myself with a love for cosplay." "Really? Huh. I never knew much about the other Sekirei. But didn't you talk to Yume and Karasuba when you were still two people?" Issei asked, making Kusing nervous. She rubbed her cheek and replied. "Well, that's true, but I wasn't really a social butterfly because of my condition," Kusano said, still feeling like she was a bad person due to the people that death killed when protecting her from harm. Issei was silent at this before turning Kusano around and hugging her in his arms, which made Kusano blush until she felt safe in his arms. "It's fine Ku-chan. You are in a safe place now and no one can harm you," Issei said, which made Kusano smile in response. "I know and thank you," Kusano said before Issei finished up doing her hair and let Kusano go until Kacho came into the room and smiled that her Ashikabi was tending to Kusano, since she knew that Kusano had a lot of trouble sleeping last night, even after Issei winged her, which was expected since Kusano's two personalities have fused. Hence, it was understandable that Kusano would be having a few nightmares for a while, until her mind settled down. Luckily, Issei and the girls were there to calm her down and stop the nightmares. The entire western and southern areas of Shinto Tito are surprised and think that both you and Santiago are the strongest Ashikabi in the north and east, respectively. Many of them will either attempt to flee, or they will try to forge an alliance with the strongest Ashikabi in their areas. Kacho explained before pulling out two files and handing them to Issei. Issei accepted them and began to look over the two files before reading them aloud. "So these two are the strongest Ashikabis in their areas. In terms of money and power, yes. Their Sekirei count is impressive. However, they actually lack any real power," Kacho said before going through the files. "The Ashikabi of the south is Hayata Mikagami, and she's a rich girl who doesn't flaunt her wealth like other rich kids. She is very into many games, such as role-play and multiplayer games. She said she saw the Sekirei game as the ultimate game, since this is all she wants in a game." Issei nodded since he recalled meeting the girl when he found a Kitsu and stopped Mikagami from winging her. However, he was curious about this girl, so she could be a possible comrade in the future. "And the Ashikabi of the West." Kacho giggled as she tapped the file picture. "He's actually going to be troublesome since he's literally a stubborn child in the body of a man. Higa Izumi. He's the second best pharmaceutical company and hates MBI with a passion, so he's tried to bring them down many times and failed. So it's best we avoid him, but also be wary of his actions." "Correct." He's a dangerously ambitious and arrogant person, a dangerous combination in this game, since he's blackmailed many Ashikabi and Sekirei to join him with false words and promises. Kacho said, annoying Issei to click his tongue. I see. Thank you for the information, Kacho, but I would like to ask how the others have been adjusting to their new powers and bodies since they accepted my dragon pieces. Issei said since he was curious about their powers and their changes until Kacho nodded and pulled out a notepad. Akitsu has been able to better control her powers thanks to the bishop piece, and the exercises you told her about are helping her better use her eyes and imagination. She is also getting a better understanding of her transformation since she can partially transform into a dragon. That's great. I believe that the bishop piece would have best suited Akitsu since it would have allowed her better control over her powers after they've been locked away for so long. Issei said, which made Kacho smile before moving to the next few. Next is Benitsubasa. Her strength has drastically increased thanks to the rook piece, and she's been working hard to increase her skills in using both speed and power. Her durability has increased significantly as well, since Benitsubasa has been excited about the Azazel Cup and wants to be ready to fight against her opponents. Oh, and she also said she wants to go shopping with you later. I have no appointment scheduled today, and no people are trying to leave Shinto Tito, so I don't think that'll be a problem. Issei said, which made Kacho happy that Issei cared about them and wished to spend more time with them. As for the pawns of our group, Yahin, myself, Kusano, and Areha, all of us have grown and are getting accustomed to the forms that best suit our styles, but we're having trouble with the other forms that we struggle with. For Areha, the knight and rook are best suited for her skills, since the chakrams she wields are able to move much faster and become more powerful thanks to the two forms. However, the bishop form is the one that she seems to have trouble with, which is understandable since she's known as a weapon-type Sekirei. That's good to know. Do the others and yourself suffer the same issues with the pawns? Yahin and I are better at using them, since Yahin can use all three forms with ease due to her versatile skills in assassination. Myself on the other hand, I need some help with using the rook and knight forms since I prefer hand-to-hand combat. I can defend myself against an opponent who is a master black belt martial artist, but my true skills are with the bishop piece, which enhances my powers with technology. That makes sense. Kusano accepted the pawn just yesterday evening, so it's understandable. She needs more time to adjust since she's been afraid her whole life, so Kusano is bound to have some night terrors. The best thing we can do for Kusano is be there for her when she needs it and more. Issei said, which made Kacho smile at the sight of her Ashikabi, since underneath that dragon was a kind heart that cared for so many people in his life. And anything about other Sekirei possibly coming to the north or the other areas. It's best to make sure that their Ashikabis don't end up being blackmailed or harmed by others. Issei asked before Kacho nodded. Actually, yes. There appears to be a report that someone was trying to hack into both MBI and Izumi's business. Kacho said, which surprised Issei before asking about the obvious subjects. Matsu. She's the only other person I know with skills in tech and hacking. It wasn't her. Matsu had been in the Izumo Inn the whole evening, and she's been worried about the game, so she only hacked satellites to see the forest. That leech that MBI threw out. What was his name? Issei asked himself before Kacho clarified with disdain. Seo Kaoru. Kacho said before shaking her head. Also, no, since he was busy hauling giant fruit and vegetables from the forest to a transport truck. Kacho then showed the video before Issei sighed at the false lead. Okay, so there goes our main suspects. Are you sure it wasn't anyone at MBI or just a white hat hacker? No. They seemed to be going after specifically the security footage that was near the forest, but mostly you and Santiago. It seems that whoever hacked the footage is a fan of both you and the Ashikabi of Death. Kacho said before seeing Issei stifle a laugh before asking. Is that what they're calling him? All he needs is the black Sekirei to join him, and that would be even more terrifying. Kacho said in amusement, which made Issei laugh a bit before Issei looked at the footage that was taken until he noticed how the camera was getting fuzzy, as if the video was being distorted by sound or a jammer. Kacho. Issei said before asking his question. Are there any Sekirei who specialize in sound-based attacks or electricity? Well, the only ones I know that can use sound or electricity are the Raiden twins, which are bonded to Seo Kaoru, and another Sekirei known as Kuno. Kacho said before handing a file to Issei. Sekirei number 95, Kuno. The Siren Sekirei. Issei said to himself as he read the file. Kuno was a short fair-skinned girl with blue eyes and messy chin-length blonde hair. She is slender and petite, with a small bust, which is one of the main things she is insecure about. She wears a blue long-sleeved blouse with a white collar and a matching ruffled skirt, knee-high black boots, and white stockings that stop just above her knees. Kuno has been shown as a very clumsy yet kind person. She is also very shy and quiet. because Kuno's power can hurt her more than her opponent, she has been hesitant about using it. She is only pushed into using it once, which surprised Issei until he also read that Kuno is going under some medical treatment to help her control her powers and deal with her physical issues. Azazel. Issei said in shock when looking at the fact that Azazel was the one responsible for helping Kuno with her powers. Thanks to the treatment from the GREMORY, Kuno was able to become a master of sound and was able to enhance her powers to the point she was known as the Siren Sekirei, especially when she learned how to use radio waves and other frequencies to track down others. So she was the one who was looking at the footage. Issei said to himself before looking at Kacho, who was just as shocked as her Ashikabi was, before nodding his way. Locate Kuno and let's see if she wants to join us. Issei said, which made Kacho smile before she sent Issei an address. All set. And that's why I love you. Issei said before kissing Kacho, making her moan as she felt her wings emerge from her back. She smiled as Kacho felt Issei squeeze her rear, making the librarian-like Sekirei feel more comfortable and confident in her appearance, as well as in Issei's arms. It felt like they were kissing for a long time until they stopped to take a good amount of air in, which made Kacho feel more loved by Issei before Kacho then felt Issei kiss her lips one last time, until he thanked her for the information and began to roll out with Akitsu and Benitsubasa. Kacho felt so warm and happy that she headed to her room with a desire to show off her special underwear to Issei tonight after their date that Issei was going to take her on after he returned from the flocking. Ariha pouted at this since she envied the other girls due to her limited skills. Ariha knew she was weak in terms of combat since her chakrams could only do so much. Still, her weapon style was nothing compared to Benitsubasa's brute force fighting style, Yahan's assassination skills, Akitsu's power in elemental combat, or even Kacho's intelligence that rivaled Matsu's skills in tech. Ariha felt like Issei wasn't looking her way since he saw her as a weakling, until a voice stopped her train of thought. Hey. You're the maid who works for the Dragon Ashikabi, right? The voice asked, causing Ariha to freeze before she turned to see a pair of girls standing on the fence near her Ashikabi's home, which made Ariha ready her chakrams before the Spitfire one raised a hand to show she meant no harm. Don't get mad. We're just here to send a message to your Ashikabi. I'm Sekirei, number 31, Sai. And this crybaby is my sister, Sekirei number 40, Shai. Sai said, making Shai look down at this until Ariha narrowed her eyes as she recalled reading about them in some files that Kacho pulled up on Dangerous Sekirei. Sai was a young woman of slender build. She had short blonde hair, with several strands reaching her chin and a large strand sticking up from the top of her head, bending towards the back of her head, and light-colored eyes. She wore an alternatively dark and light-colored top that exposed her stomach, dark leather shorts held up by a belt, a white and black choker, and dark stockings. Shai, on the other hand, was a young woman of a slender build. She had black hair which she wore in twin tails that reached to her breasts, with each tail being secured by a light-colored band and multiple strands messily extending outwards. As well as light-colored wore a long white kuzote with semi-detached sleeves, likely to hide her weapon, and tied at her midsection by a white bow, a red skirt similar to a hakama, white stockings, and black boots. Ariha could tell that the two were opposites of each other, since Sai seemed to be the muscle behind the duo and seemed to be the naughty gangster type, while Shai, on the other hand, was a lady who didn't seem to enjoy the idea of fighting which sensed to the chakram Sekirei. Sorry, but I'm afraid I can't have you leave willingly. Ariha said before Sai smiled at this and threw an object at Ariha until one of her chakrams deflected the attack, only for Sai to begin her assault as she began to throw multiple dagger-like knives at Ariha, who spun her chakrams and deflected the knives. At the same time, Shai was worried about Sai, unsure what she could do until a vine wrapped around Shai's mouth, silencing her. The vine took her near Kusano, who was behind the fence, and glared at the girl. I don't want to harm you, but I will if you resist. Do you surrender? Kusano asked before Shai nodded her head so fast that Kusano thought it would fall off. Kusano calmed her own and took Shai into the house. What's the matter, Sai? Can't hit a still target? Ariha asked with Sai seemingly annoyed by Ariha's taunt before smirking as she ran to the tree and climbed to the top, jumping off said tree and flying in the air. Nope. You're where I need you to be. Sai shouted before her hand seemed to glow a bit and multiple invisible strings appeared around all of her fingers, excluding her thumbs. And now you're trapped like a rat. Sai's eyes glowed as she tugged her strings up to make all the daggers stand up before the strings wrapped around Ariha and began to lift the Sekirei by her arms and legs up toward Sai, who seemed excited as she then pulled out a knife from her hair and into her mouth. Ariha was surprised by this as Sai came at her, ready to deal the finishing blow. You're mine. Your chakrams are too weak to cut my strings, and they won't move fast enough to stop me from killing you. Sai said in her mind as she saw Ariha's shocked expression until she saw her neck, which made Sai smile when she saw the blood spray from the chakram Sekirei until the chakram Sekirei fell. In contrast, Sai smiled in victory before looking at the knife in her mouth to see her enemy's blood hit her victory smile, which turned into a shocked face as the dagger revealed there was no blood on it. What? Impossible. I know I hit her in the neck, so why isn't there blood? Sai asked herself before she turned to see Ureha, only for her eyes to meet a fist that sent Sai flying into the tree, which shocked her, until she looked up to see Ureha, who was supposed to be dead, standing with dragon-like eyes, and had both dragon scales and claws on her hands and neck, but in Ureha's other hand was a tomato. I should thank you since you cut up a tomato I wanted to use in today's brunch for when Issei-sama returns from recruiting another Sekirei. Ureha said while Sai gasped at the fruit. Why you tricked me with a tea tomato? Seriously? Sai stuttered before Ureha had her claws retract until her hand was normal again, and she sighed in relief that her plan worked. I figured there was something up with the way she was attacking, so using the rook was the best option for me to ensure that I was ready to rank any attack she was going to throw at me. I know my scales are strong enough to protect me from her knives, but it's like Issei-sama said. Never underestimate your opponents or leave yourself open unless you have a way to defend yourself. Ureha thought before walking towards Sai and grabbed her by the back of her shirt before walking towards the house with Sai blacking out, succumbing to her wounds. You know Issei doesn't see you as a weakling in any way. You know that, right? Kacho asked before Ureha nodded. I understood his reason for wanting me on house guard duty since he trusted me to protect our home. And he knows how hard I've been training to make sure I'm ready for anything. Ureha said as she held back the tears, knowing that Issei trusted her and cared for her well-being. Issei had been training with all of them for as long as he winged them and wished to help them all overcome their weaknesses. Ureha knew that in terms of combat, she was the weakest behind Kacho since she was a weapon-type user. Still, when Issei spent time with only her and helped train her to be not only a better maid, but a better fighter as well, it made Ureha feel more special and loved since Issei told her that even he had his moments of weakness when they trained a while back. Flashback. I understand what it's like to be weak. Issei said while drinking some water while Ureha was lying on the ground, panting heavily from exhaustion until she looked at him in surprise. Really, but you are so strong. Heh. No one is born powerful. I know your species may appear to be powerful, but remember that both Mia and Karasuba have weaknesses that they don't even know about. Issei said before chuckling, recalling his past weakness. When I was 17 years old, I was killed by a fallen angel due to my lustful and idiotic self. It made me realize that my old self was the result of my actions, which is why I made a vow to myself not to fall for such things when I got older. I was sent into a war, and even then, I struggled and needed help against opponents stronger than me. In the end, it was a good thing I learned how to become stronger with not just emotions, but actual training and understanding of how to improve oneself. I wanted to prove to myself that I was worthy of being both Drake's partner and the Red Dragon Emperor. Issei said, which amazed Ureha since she had seen her Ashikabi's power and thought he was invincible, so hearing his struggles and how he was very weak made the maid see him in a new light. Then I'll become worthy of not just being a pawn, but also being the ultimate maid to assist you however I can. Ureha said, which made Issei smile in response. I look forward to that, Ureha. Show me how ambitious you really are. Issei said with excitement in his tone. This was the special moment that made Ureha realize that Issei didn't just value power, but he saw the strength and potential in all of the Sekirei. And flashback. So when do you think Issei will return? Ureha asked after placing Sai in a locked-up room, and Issei turned into a prison cell, since it was strong enough to tank a dragon shot from both the inside and out. According to the text that I just received from him, Issei-sama is actually recruiting a group of Sekirei that the Siren Sekirei brought together. Kacho said before looking at Sai and Shai until she looked at their files. The two of them are definitely different than what I had on their files. Sai is supposed to be a whip user who uses daggers at the ends of them, while Shai uses an arm blade for offense, but what I saw is that Sai was trained to use thin, invisible, and durable strings to wield her daggers, while Shai seemed to wield a pair of collapsible shields on her arms. I noticed the same thing. Sai seemed to be more skilled in using speed and aim than power alone. I assume you asked Manaka about the two and where they got their new weapons. Kusano and Ureha asked before Kacho nodded. I did, and apparently, they were part of a special assassination team that Manaka made to deal with some missions that not even the disciplinary squad could handle. Assassins are very useful in business, so it makes sense that Manaka would create an assassin group. From what Manaka told me, the assassin group was a 3-person group with Sekirei number 55, Saki was the leader, and both Shai and Sai were the backups. Saki saw their skills and asked Manaka to have them on the team, so he allowed them. That's why they were much more skilled than they were before. Kacho had to admit that they had the element of surprise, since they weren't ready for Kusano to attack, which made Kacho think that the trio had broken up, since the duo was possibly reacting to one of the Ashikabis in the area. I wanted to ask. You two were here for either Santiago or Issei Hyoudou, correct? I wanted to prove your worth to them, but since you were going after Issei-sama's home, I'm going to assume you are reacting to Santiago, correct? Kacho asked before Shai replied to the question. Well, yes and no. Our leader Saki was actually reacting to Santiago and went to join his group while also gathering those who she knew were reacting to him thanks to MBI's observations on other unwinged Sekirei. Shai explained before Sai sighed and replied. In truth, we were hoping to capture Areha so the two of us could use her to get Issei to come to us so we could not only chat but also we can try to gauge who he is as a person since a file is nice and all, but it's not the same as actually being able to interact with him. Sai explained, which made Kacho nod in understanding before speaking to the small Sekirei. I get that, but didn't you think of just talking to him instead of attempting the whole kidnapping? In our line of work, the best way to see a person's true emotions is for them to be in a situation that forces them to reveal their true colors. Sai explained before hearing a bell being rung until the door was opened to reveal Issei walking into the house with Akitsu and Benitsubasa, along with a few others. Kuno was wearing her normal attire, but Kacho could tell that the woman was more dangerous than she appeared to be, especially if that little glint in her eyes made Kacho hide her shiver in fear. So it's official. She's part of the team? Kacho asked before Issei nodded in response. Yes. Kacho and I talked while I was hesitant about bringing her on the team. Kuno impressed me with her skills and how she and Azazel got along with each other. I also talked to Azazel about Kuno's powers, so I got the chance to see her skills in action, especially when some Sekirei who were reacting to Santiago tried to get the jump on me. Issei said, recalling the crazy blood-obsessed Sekirei, Kurenai, who tried to stab him but failed to do so in her attempts. If she impressed you, then I'm down for it, but will she be a team player? Kacho asked before Issei nodded and smiled as he brought out his chess set. Kuno is officially the fourth pawn to join our little group, along with a few others. Allow me to introduce the others Kuno picked up before I showed up. Issei said as he stepped aside to reveal the others in the group. Musubi cheered as she waved at the group in front of her with a large smile on her face. My name is Musubi. I'm a fist-type Sekirei. Musubi said as she showed off her muscles, which made Kacho sigh, figuring that the bubbly brunette was reacting to Issei, especially given the fact that she was saved by one of the members of the second disciplinary squad. It makes sense since Yum was originally the Sekirei of light but also love, so that they may be siblings. Heck, the only difference between the two of them is their assets and their personalities. Kacho said in her mind by the time Issei walked over to her and explained that Kuno and Musubi were now the newest members, pawn and rook, in that order, of the peerage. And I look forward to working with you all. This is going to be exciting. Kuno said that Kacho was amazed by the amount of power they had on their side, since Kuno's powers would be very useful in dealing damage to opponents from far away. Issei smiled at this before Kacho explained what happened while he was out, which Issei didn't mind. He also complimented Areha and Kusano for taking down both Sai and Shai before going to them. Still, Kacho knew her Ashikabi very well and figured that they would both join their side and Yahin would get 2 new members for the team. Though, the only things I am worried about the most are Higa Izumi and Hayata Mikagami. Hopefully, with Santiago as our ally, we'll be able to take care of them should they become a threat to our factions. Kacho pondered in her head before following Issei to help their new colleagues better adjust to their powers. Meanwhile, with Higa Izumi. This will be your target, Yuzum. I hope you make sure you follow my orders. Otherwise, I'm afraid that a certain patient of mine will sadly fall asleep forever and you wouldn't want anything to happen to her, right? Higa Izumi asked while Yuzum gripped her left hand, hidden by her battle uniform. But why him? Simple. Issei Hyoudou and Santiago are becoming more powerful and popular among the general masses. If they were to give hope to the fools who serve me, then they'd conquer the board, which is why it's better to strike while they're unaware of my army. Which is why your mission is simple. Kill Issei Hyoudou. Higa Izumi said, which made Yuzum's heart race with a mix of anger and fear. She struggled to maintain her composure, knowing that Higa Izumi's threat was not empty. I understand. Yuzum said through gritted teeth. I'll do what you ask. Higa Izumi smirked, satisfied with Yuzum's compliance. Good. Remember, failure is not an option. For your sake and the sake of your precious Ashikabi. Yuzum nodded and left the room, her mind whirling with conflicting emotions. Yuzum knew she had to find a way to protect her destined one without becoming a pawn in Higa Izumi's twisted game. This is risky, especially since if Higa finds out I failed, then he'll pull the plug on her. Yuzum said to herself while walking back to Izumo Inn, unaware of a friend watching over her well-being. Yuzum. Mia said before pulling out a phone and texting the number of a special neighbor who had made not only her life, but also the lives of Matsu, Kazuhana, and Homura a lot livelier. Mia waited while the phone was ringing until she heard the line being picked up. Hello? This is the Hyoudou residence. How may I help you? Areha asked before Mia responded. This is Mia-sama. I need to send a message to Issei Hyoudou. Immediately. Mia said, which startled Areha on the other end since she was speaking to the legendary Sekirei before shakily taking the message from Mia-sama. Once Issei receives the message, this act is seen as a declaration of war between Higa Izumi and Issei Hyoudou. I have to kill him. Why? Why him of all people? Yuzume asked herself as she recalled the fun moments that Yuzume had when she first met Issei, and every day with him made the veiled Sekirei feel happier since she heard from Mia and Matsu that Issei is an extremely powerful Ashikabi, which made her think that it may be possible to not only have him as a friend, but maybe as someone who could help her friend out of the situation they're in. Yuzume waited until nightfall and donned her battle clothes before heading towards Issei's home, which was pretty close. Still, Yuzume had to be wary of the Sekirei who patrolled the yard at night to make sure that there were no intruders since Kacho had security installed to make sure that almost any Sekirei couldn't break in, which makes sense since Mia and Karasuba could destroy her security system. Yuzume went onto the rooftop to avoid Areha, who was patrolling the backyard, which was good for Yuzume since her veils wouldn't stand a chance against those chakrams. Okay, I got past the deadly maid, so now I just have to. Who the hell invited you here this late at night? Yuzume asked before being elbowed in the stomach by Sai, who made Yuzume lose her footing until she tripped and grabbed onto the side of the roof before seeing multiple daggers stab into her cloth, only a chakram to slice her veils, making her almost fall on the ground, her left leg being sliced by another chakram. Yuzume's heart raced as she dangled from the edge of the roof. The daggers pinned her remaining cloth in her hands, and the chakrams nearly severed the rest. She glanced down and saw Sai standing below, her eyes sharp and cold. You're not very stealthy, you know. Sai remarked, twirling another dagger between her fingers. What are you doing here, Yuzume? Yuzume struggled to find the right words. She hadn't expected to get caught so easily, especially not by someone like Sai, since she heard that the girl was very bullheaded. I have no choice. I need to see Issei. At this hour. In battle gear. Sai narrowed her eyes, clearly not buying Yuzume's excuse. Sounds more like an assassination attempt than a friendly visit. Yuzume felt her grip slipping. Please, let me explain. No need. Sai tossed the dagger she was holding, narrowly missing Yuzume's hand. You're coming down. Yuzume winced as she felt the fabric tearing. The next moment, she plummeted to the ground, landing hard on her back. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and before she could recover, Sai was already standing over her with Areha, a dagger and chakram pressed against Yuzume's throat and back. You're lucky Issei isn't here. Sai said, her voice low. Otherwise, I'd have killed you already. Yuzume's eyes widened. Please, Sai. I didn't want this. I was forced to. Forced. By who? Sai demanded, pressing the dagger a bit closer to Yuzume's skin, drawing a thin line of blood. Yuzume hesitated, her mind racing. Could she trust Sai? Could she reveal the truth? But she didn't have time to consider her options as she felt Sai's patience wearing thin. Higa Izumi. Yuzume finally whispered, her voice trembling. He threatened to kill someone very dear to me if I didn't do this. Sai's expression softened, but only slightly. And you thought killing Issei would solve that? Yuzume shook her head frantically. No, I was hoping to find another way, but… Sai lifted the dagger from Yuzume's throat and stepped back. You're a fool if you think Higa's threats are your only option. You should have come to us since Issei told me that he looks after all the Sekirei, winged or unwinged in the north, and that includes you. Yuzume sat up, rubbing her sore neck. I didn't think you'd understand. You clearly don't know us very well then. Sai said, turning her back on Yuzume. But it's not too late. If you want to save your friend, you're going to need our help. Yuzume looked up at Sai, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You'd help me? Of course. Sai replied, glancing over her shoulder. But you'll need to explain everything to Issei first. And if you're lying. I'm not. Yuzume said quickly, her voice filled with desperation. I swear, I'll tell him everything. Good. Sai said with a nod. Then follow me. We'll find a way to deal with Higa Izumi and save your friend. But remember, betray us, and there won't be a second chance. Yuzume got to her feet, her legs still shaky from the encounter. She felt a surge of gratitude towards Sai despite the rough start. As they walked towards Issei's home, Yuzume couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and relief. As Yuzume followed Sai and Areha toward the entrance of Issei's home, her heart pounded in her chest. Every step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the fear of what was to come and the relief that she might finally find a way out of her predicament. When they reached the door, Sai turned to Yuzume, her gaze softer but still firm. Remember, be honest. Issei isn't someone you can deceive, and neither am I. Yuzume nodded, swallowing hard as Sai pushed the door open. The interior of Issei's home was warm and inviting, a sharp contrast to the tension Yuzum felt. The lights were dimmed, casting a soft glow over the room. Yuzum spotted Kacho sitting on a plush chair, her wings fluttering slightly as she read a book. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly as she noticed Yuzum's presence. But what caught Yuzum's attention most was Issei, seated on a large couch with a thick book in his hands. His expression was calm, almost serene, as he read, seemingly unaware of the turmoil that Yuzum was bringing into his home. Issei. Sai called softly, making him look up. His eyes immediately met Yuzum's, and for a moment, she froze. She'd always known Issei as the kind and powerful Ashikabi who had a natural aura of warmth and protection around him, but now, under his calm and piercing gaze, she felt exposed. Like he could see every secret she was holding back. Yuzum? Issei's voice was gentle, but there was a hint of curiosity and concern. What brings you here at this hour? And in those clothes? Yuzum opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She felt her throat tighten, fear and guilt overwhelming her. Before she could collapse under the weight of her emotions, Sai placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, giving her the strength to continue. Yuzum began, her voice trembling. I came because I need your help. Issei's eyes softened, and he closed the book, setting it aside. Of course. Come, sit down. Tell me what's going on. He gestured to the couch opposite him, and Yuzum hesitated for a moment before slowly making her way over. Her legs still felt shaky, but she managed to sit down, her hands gripping the edge of the seat. Kacho watched in silence, her expression unreadable, while Lorejo leaned against the wall, her chakram resting at her side, but still within easy reach. Issei leaned forward slightly, his attention fully on Yuzum. Take your time. We're here to listen. Yuzum took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She glanced at Sai, who gave her a small nod, urging her to speak. I was sent here. To kill you. Yuzum finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Higa Izumi. He's holding someone I care about hostage. He threatened to kill her if I didn't do this. There was a heavy silence in the room, and Yuzum felt the weight of her words hanging in the air. She dared not look up, fearing what she might see in Issei's eyes. But then, Issei's voice cut through the silence, calm and steady. I see. And who is this person he's holding hostage? Yuzum blinked, surprised by his response. She'd expected anger, or at the very least disappointment, but all she heard was understanding. Her name is Chiho. Yuzum replied, her voice wavering. She's someone dear to me. Higa's been using her to control me for a while now, but this is the first time he's asked me to do something like this. Issei nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful winced. He could tell that Yuzum was hiding something if what Mia's message said was true. And you thought that going through with this would be the only way to save her? Also, how is Chiho alive? When I was told about Chiho, she was dead, so how is she alive? Yuzum nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't want to do it. But I didn't see any other way. I thought. Maybe I could talk to you, ask for your help, but I was scared. You still didn't answer my question about how Chiho is alive when her file labels her dead. Issei said before Yuzum sighed. I used the Jinkei that Matsu had in her room and took it to Higa, hoping he could use it to save Chiho's life. It worked by making her into a Sekirei, but in order to cover the fact that I stole the Jinkei, I asked Higa to have Chiho be labeled dead in her human body while we monitored her condition. Higa told me that if the public knew this, then they'd go after Chiho and possibly Matsu. I couldn't let that happen, so I worked with him this whole time to keep my sins a secret. Yuzum said with her head down, looking away from him until Issei replied to her. You were desperate. Issei corrected gently. And Higa knew that. Yuzum looked up at him, her vision blurred by tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Issei. I don't want to hurt anyone. I want to save Chiho. Issei leaned back, exhaling softly. Yuzum, I'm not angry with you. In fact, I'm glad you came to me instead of going through with it. This is a complicated situation, but I believe we can find a way to help you and Chiho without anyone getting hurt. Yuzum felt a wave of relief wash over her, and the tears finally spilled over her as she nodded. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll need to act quickly. Issei continued, his tone more serious now. Higa isn't someone who'll take this lightly. But you're not alone in this, Yuzum. We'll figure this out together. Kacho, who had been silently observing, finally spoke up. We'll need to devise a plan to extract Chiho from Higa's control. But for now, you're safe here, Yuzum. Rest and gather your strength. You'll need it. Yuzum nodded, feeling an immense burden lifting from her shoulders. For the first time in what felt like years, she was happy and could breathe with someone who was there to help her save not just Chiho, but also stop Higa. Issei sat in the living room, his fingers drumming lightly on the table as he absorbed the details of the plan laid out before him. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow from the lamps casting a warm, almost serene atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the tension in the air. Acho, ever the strategist, had spread out a series of documents, maps, and photographs across the table, each one meticulously annotated with notes and arrows, highlighting key information about Higa Izumi's operations. "This is his headquarters," Kacho began, pointing to a large, imposing building on one of the maps. "It's heavily guarded but not impenetrable. We'll need to bypass several security layers to reach Chiho, who is being kept here." She pointed to a private wing, its isolation within the building, making it both a secure and vulnerable location. "This is where he's made his mistake. Isolating her means fewer guards, but it also means if we can get in unnoticed, we have a straight shot at getting her out." Issei leaned in closer, studying the layout. "What about his Sekirei?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with concern. "We know Higa has at least 4 Sekirei at his disposal, and they'll be our biggest threat." Acho nodded, flipping through the file until she found a section detailing Higa's current Sekirei. "He's relying on brute force to keep her secure. Here's what we know. There's Sekirei number 18 Ichiya, who specializes in hand-to-hand combat. Number 16 Toyotama, who is adept with using polearm weapons such as a spear and staff. Number 81 Meiko, who provides defense with her tonfas, and finally, number 86 Katsuragi, who uses a fighting style with her legs and feet more than hand-to-hand." Issei frowned, taking in the information. "We'll need to neutralize them without drawing too much attention. If we can distract or incapacitate them long enough, we should be able to reach Chiho." As the discussion continued, Ureha, who had been quietly observing, rose from her seat. Sensing the gravity of the situation and knowing the night would be long, she made her way toward the kitchen, intent on brewing some coffee. But just as she reached for the coffee pot, Issei's voice stopped her. "Ureha," he called out, his tone gentle yet firm. "Make tea instead. Your special blend." Ureha turned to look at him, surprised by the request. She had always known Issei to be a coffee person, especially during late-night strategizing sessions. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet intensity that she couldn't ignore. It was as if he knew that this night was going to be different and that something more comforting than coffee was needed. "All right." Ureha replied softly, nodding in understanding. She put the coffee pot back and began preparing the tea, carefully measuring the herbs and leaves that went into her special blend. It was a mix designed to soothe the nerves and calm the mind, something she had created for moments just like this, especially when Kusano had a nightmare that was calmed down by both Issei and Ureha's special tea. Meanwhile, Kacho continued outlining the plan, detailing every step they'd need to take to infiltrate Higa's stronghold and extract Chiho. She spoke with the precision of someone who had been through many such operations before, but even she knew that this mission carried a different weight. One that involved personal stakes and deep emotional bonds. Yuzum, who had been standing quietly to the side, listened intently to the plan. But as the details unfolded, she started to feel a growing sense of unease. Her name hadn't been mentioned once, and she began to wonder if she had a place in this mission at all. She bit her lip, her heart sinking with each passing moment. But just as she was about to speak up, Issei looked up from the files and met her gaze. There was a softness in his eyes, a reassurance that immediately put her at ease. "Yuzum," Issei said, his voice gentle but full of purpose. "You have a special role to play in this. You're the one who knows Chiho the best. When we get to her, you'll be the one to bring her out. She'll trust you more than anyone else." Yuzum's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected to be given such an important task. "But, I thought." Issei smiled, understanding her hesitation. "Leave the heavy lifting to us," he said, his tone warm and reassuring. "Your job is just as important as ours. We need Chiho to feel safe, and you're the key to that. She knows you, she trusts you, and that trust will be crucial when we get her out of there." Yuzum felt a lump in her throat, a mix of relief and gratitude swelling inside her. For so long, she had felt like she was on the outside, a pawn in someone else's game. But now, Issei was giving her a chance not only to redeem herself, but also to be the one who could make a difference for Chiho. At that moment, Ureha returned with the tea, the delicate aroma filling the room. She carefully poured a cup and handed it to Yuzum, who accepted it with both hands. The cup was warm, and as she took a sip, she felt the soothing heat spread through her, calming her frayed nerves. The taste was comforting and familiar, and before she realized it, she had finished the entire cup. "Thank you, Ureha," Yuzum said, her voice a little more relaxed. The tea had worked wonders, easing the tension that had been knotting her stomach all evening. She set the cup down, ready to focus back on the conversation, but a wave of drowsiness suddenly hit her. Her eyelids grew heavy, and despite her best efforts to stay awake, she felt herself slipping into a peaceful slumber. She barely managed to settle back into her seat before she was out, her breathing slow and steady as she drifted off into a deep sleep. Issei watched as Yuzum's eyes fluttered shut, a soft smile playing on his lips. He gently took the blanket that Ariha handed him and draped it over Yuzume, tucking it around her with care. The sight of her peaceful expression, so free from the fear and anxiety that had gripped her earlier, filled him with a quiet sense of satisfaction. Leaning down, he brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her forehead lightly, his voice a whisper as he said, "Rest now, Yuzume. We'll get Chiho out of there, I promise." Yuzume murmured something in her sleep, a small, contented sound that made Issei's heart ache with a protective instinct. He straightened up, turning his attention back to Kacho, and the map spread out before them. The night was far from over, and there was still much to be done. But for now, Yuzume could rest, secure in the knowledge that she wasn't alone in this fight. As Issei and Kacho continued to strategize, the room took on a quieter, more focused energy. They knew the risks and the challenges that lay ahead, but there was a sense of determination that fueled their every move. They weren't just fighting to save Chiho. They were fighting for each other, for the bonds that had brought them together, and the future they wanted to protect. Now that Yuzume is out of the way, we can go ahead and begin our plan. If what Mia told Ariha was true, then if Yuzume doesn't return tomorrow, that means Chiho won't live to see the next day. Issei said before pulling out his phone and tapping a number in his saved contacts. Issei waited on the line until the caller picked up. "The veil is down?" Benitsubasa asked on her side as she was with Akitsu at Higa's business place, along with Musubi, Kuno, and Yahin. They were the extraction team after Ariha received a call from Mia. She informed Issei of the message, which made their plan go underway, with Issei separating the group into two, with one heading to Higa's business and making sure that Higa leaves, while also keeping an eye on the building to see how strong their security is. Meanwhile, Issei and the home base would intercept Yuzume and make sure she stays out of the battle. However, there was one wild card that Issei knew about and told Kacho and Kuno to be wary of as they searched for their target. "Yep. Are you and the others in position?" Issei asked while Kacho was typing some commands on her laptop and displaying the location of the caller until she tapped one final key that made her screen green, which made Kacho smile. "We're in." Issei nodded before informing the caller. "The west is open. Has the Black Sekirei shown up?" Issei asked since the siren of his team had informed him about the Black Sekirei and how she wished to meet Issei to either kill him or become his Sekirei, which made Issei's instincts go on full alert since Karasuba is an insane woman. Still, she's smart and knows how to frighten her opponents when first meeting them. "No sign of Lady Death, but something is making my skin crawl since I don't see any of the security guards or even the Sekirei or Ashikabi that Higa blackmailed to join his group. All of Higa's Sekirei are at his home, but something doesn't feel right. I don't see any lights on at all, which makes me wonder what happened." "Permission to go ahead and continue the plan?" Benitsubasa asked before Issei replied. "I'm on my way. Go through the rooftop and wait for me there. Don't touch anything or cause a ruckus that alerts security," Issei said before hanging up the call and looking at Kacho. "Keep the base safe and be wary, since I have a feeling that Karasuba will be coming after me. Karasuba has been quiet since she left MBI after we saved Kusano," Issei said, knowing that Karasuba was not to be underestimated or taken lightly, until Kacho nodded and wished him luck and kissed him as well for good luck, which made Issei smile before Yahin used her shadows to teleport Issei to the rooftop of Higa's business. "Alright. Any issues getting on here?" Issei asked before Yahin replied, as she had informed him of the situation. Yahin closed her eyes for a moment, the shadows she commanded swirling around her as she looked into the hospital. "Nothing immediate, but there's a strange lack of presence. No guards, no patrols. It feels like everyone vanished." Issei nodded, his instincts on high alert. "Alright, we move now. Head for Chiho's floor, but stay sharp. If Higa's planning anything, we'll know soon enough." He tapped his earpiece, contacting Kacho back at the base. "Kacho, anything new? What's the status of security?" Kacho's voice came through after a slight pause. "It's quiet. It's too quiet for even a hospital at this hour. Something's off. I've been monitoring the security feeds and everything looks normal except one thing." She hesitated for a moment, then continued. "Around 10 p.m, the footage gets fuzzy for about 5 minutes and then it's back to normal. It's like something or someone is manipulating the cameras during that time." Issei frowned, his suspicion deepening. "Could be Karasuba or someone else. Either way, keep monitoring. If anything changes, let me know immediately." "Will do," Kacho replied, her voice steady. "Be careful, Issei." Turning to the group, Issei gestured toward the rooftop access door. "Let's move. We're heading for Chiho's floor, but stay sharp. Something's off." As they descended into the hospital, the halls were disturbingly quiet, the only sound being their soft footsteps. No nurses, no patients, and no guards. It was like the entire building had been abandoned, adding to the growing sense of unease. Benitsubasa, walking beside Issei, glanced at him. "This doesn't feel right. Even for a hospital, there should be at least some signs of life." "I know." Issei replied, eyes scanning the area. Stay on guard. We're walking into something. When they finally reached Chiho's floor, Musubi, always eager, positioned herself near the door, ready to act, while Akitsu's icy presence loomed in the background. Yahin and Kuno flanked the group, covering their backs. Issei opened the door to Chiho's room cautiously, expecting the worst. Kick it down. Issei ordered before Musubi nodded, punching the door off its hinges. However, as they entered, Chiho was still there, peacefully resting in her hospital bed. Yet, something about the stillness in the air made Issei's skin crawl. Check her vitals. Issei said quietly to Yahin, her focus on every detail around them. Something needed to be added up. Ever since they entered, they haven't had to deal with any Sakurai or Ashikabi that Higa blackmailed to join him, nor was there any security near Chiho's room or Higa's office. Yahin nodded and moved to Chiho's bedside, her shadow swirling softly around her fingers as she checked the girl's vitals. She's alive and stable. Yahin confirmed, though her brow furrowed in confusion. But I don't understand. With Higa using her as leverage against Yuzume, there should have been more security. This is too easy. Issei frowned, his instinct screaming that something was wrong. We'll extract her safely. But we can't just carry her out of here. We'll use the elevator. It's the only way to ensure she doesn't get harmed when we remove her. We can't take any risks. The team nodded, moving quickly but carefully. Musubi and Akitsu started preparing to move Chiho, while Kuno remained vigilant, eyes darting around the room for any sign of danger. Benitsubasa stood guard by the door, her stance tense. Suddenly, Benitsubasa inhaled sharply, nearly gagging as her hand flew to her mouth. What the hell? She muttered, backing away from the door. Issei rushed to her side, and when he saw what had caused her reaction, his stomach turned. What the fuck? The hallway outside the room was splattered with blood, the crimson stains painting the walls in gruesome strokes. Several bodies lay scattered on the floor. Sakurai and Ashikabi alike, their lifeless forms frozen in grotesque positions. A blade had killed each one, their wounds deep and clean. But the blood wasn't fresh. It had dried, and the bodies had been there for hours. Yahin stepped forward, crouching near one of the fallen Sakurai. She touched the cold skin with her shadow-coated fingers and nodded grimly. They'd been dead for at least a few hours. Whoever did this. They were efficient. Issei clenched his fists, his mind racing until he noticed a bit of hair and fabric that was coated with a familiar scent. The black Sakurai's scent. This is Karasuba's work. No one else fights or kills like this. Benitsubasa looked back at Issei, her voice low and uneased. If this is her, then why kill them? They were working for Higa, weren't they? Issei's eyes narrowed. Karasuba doesn't care about loyalty or alliances. She's here for something. Or someone. And anyone in her way is just collateral damage. Yahin stood, her expression serious. We need to get Chiho out of here now before Karasuba shows up. If she's already killed this many, she might be waiting for us downstairs. Issei nodded. Move fast. Benitsubasa, keep an eye on the hallway. Musubi, Kuno, Akitsu. Secure Chiho and get her to the elevator. As the team moved to follow his orders, Issei couldn't shake the feeling that the real danger was still lurking just ahead. As the team moved swiftly through the eerily silent hospital, carrying Chiho toward the elevator, a faint sound stopped them in their tracks. A soft, muffled crying coming from one of the nearby rooms. Issei raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. Stay here with Chiho. He said quietly, glancing at Yahin. We'll check it out. Yahin nodded, her shadows flickering around her as she joined him. They moved cautiously toward the door just before the elevator, the sound of crying growing louder as they approached. Yahin knocked gently, and the crying abruptly stopped, replaced by a shaky voice from inside. Who's there? Issei exchanged a glance with Yahin before answering, his voice calm and reassuring. Security. We received a silent alarm. Is everything okay in there? Are you alone? There was a pause, the tension thick in the air, before the voice responded again. Yes. I'm alone. Who are you? Issei nodded to Yahin, and after a moment, the door creaked open. Inside stood Sakurai number 43, Yomi, her clothes stained with blood. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked like she had barely survived a nightmare. Without warning, she rushed forward and hugged Issei, her small frame trembling against him. Thank you. Yomi whispered, her voice breaking with relief. Thank you for coming. Issei placed a hand on her shoulder, gently pulling her back to meet her eyes. Yomi. What happened here? Are you working with Higa? Yomi shook her head vigorously, stepping back from him as she wiped her tears. No. I'm not Wing. I've just been pretending to work as security. I needed protection, and since Sakurai are stronger than humans, I figured I could stay safe by taking on the role and pretending to be a human. Issei frowned. Then what happened here? Yomi's face paled as she recalled the events. I was patrolling the floor. Everything was fine, and then Karasuba appeared. She went through the human security guards, other Sekirei, and Ashikabi like they were nothing. It was a massacre. I barely survived. I managed to hide before she found me, but… Her voice trailed off, and she looked at Issei with wide, fearful eyes. She wasn't alone. Issei's jaw tightened. Who was with her? A Sekirei. Yomi replied, her voice barely above a whisper. His name was Amabane. He was talking to her, and it sounded like they had some plan. But I didn't hear much more. I was too scared to move. Issei's mind raced. Karasuba was dangerous enough on her own, but with another Sekirei working alongside her, things got complicated. He turned to Yahin, who had been listening intently. We need to adjust the plan. If Karasuba and Amabane are here, we're dealing with more than just Higa's security. If they're still alive. Yahin nodded in agreement, her expression serious. We should get Yomi out of here with Shiho. If Karasuba comes back with Amabane, then they'll kill anyone in their path. Issei turned back to Yomi. Can you walk? We need to move quickly. Yomi nodded, her face still pale but determined. I can. Please don't leave me behind. We won't. Issei assured her, guiding her toward the group. But Chiho secure and Yomi now part of the team, they made their way to the elevator, all too aware that every second brought them closer to a potential encounter with Karasuba and her new ally. The team descended into the elevator, the tension thick in the air. Issei stood at the front, his gaze fixed ahead as Chiho remained unconscious, being safely carried by Yahin. Yomi clung to Issei's side, clearly still shaken from the earlier massacre, but determined to stay with the group. As they reached the first floor, the doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a chilling sight. The security guards and the receptionist were dead, their bodies sprawled across the floor, beaten to death. The walls were stained with blood, but this time, it wasn't the clean, precise work of a blade. It was brutal, savage. The markings left on the bodies suggested someone had used their fists. Especially on the female receptionist, whose face was unrecognizable anymore. Yomi froze at the sight, her voice barely a whisper. That has to be Amabane. He's a brawler-type Sekirei. He hates humans. And women even more. He calls them ugly pigs and lambs meant to be slaughtered. Issei clenched his fists, his mind racing. If that's the case, why would he work with Karasuba? She's a woman and one who doesn't tolerate weakness. Before he could contemplate further, the phone at the front desk suddenly rang, cutting through the oppressive silence. The team exchanged glances before Issei stepped forward, hesitantly picking up the receiver. Hello? He asked cautiously. A familiar voice purred on the other end, sending a chill down his spine. Ah, Issei-kun. I hope you've enjoyed my little gift. Issei's eyes narrowed. Karasuba. What did you do? Why are you involved? Karasuba chuckled, her tone as cold as ever. Oh, I'm just helping my destined one. When I heard Mia was giving you a heads up about Yuzume's arrangement with Higa, I had to step in and clear the path for you. I can't have those annoyances standing in your way, now can I? Issei's heart pounded as he processed her words. She had been watching, waiting for her moment to act. But Karasuba wasn't finished. By the way, did you see my second gift yet? She teased. Issei frowned in confusion, but Yahin's sharp intake of breath drew his attention. She pointed toward a corner of the lobby, her eyes wide with shock. There, slumped against the wall, was Amabane's lifeless body, stabbed repeatedly through the chest, his head slumped with a bullet hole clean through his skull. Karasuba's voice echoed in Issei's ear. I didn't really need him, you know. He was just a tool to deal with the hospital staff. Weak and disposable. But I couldn't let him live, not after insulting someone I respect and him trying to harm me. Me. Could you believe how stupid he was to try and face me with such meager strength? Issei's grip on the phone tightened as he stared at Amabane's corpse, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Granted, Issei had no care for the bastard's death, but he despised how many people he faced in the past, threw their colleagues away like garbage, just because they were weak in their eyes. You used him, just like everyone else you've killed. Oh, Issei-kun, don't be so serious, Karasuba continued with a sickening sweetness. I only do what's necessary to help you. Speaking of gifts. Are you near a TV? Before he could respond, Benitsubasa gestured toward the lobby's TV, which flickered to life, displaying a breaking news segment. The screen showed a gruesome scene. Higa Izumi's home had been completely decimated. The Sekirei under his command were either dead or severely wounded, the survivors being taken into custody by MBI. The destruction was thorough and methodical. Why? Issei asked before Karasuba's voice hummed through the phone. I told you, I'm willing to do anything to help you. Higa's no longer a problem. Consider this my gift. Now, if only you could see my attire today. But maybe another time. Her tone dripped with amusement as she blew a kiss through the phone. Until we meet again, my beloved. Oh, and I love your style. I especially love the color red. The line clicked and the call ended, leaving Issei standing in stunned silence. His mind raced as he realized what had just happened. Karasuba was watching them. Somehow, from somewhere close by, she had been observing the entire situation. Suddenly, a scent caught his attention. Faint but unmistakable. Karasuba. She was near. His eyes widened and he immediately turned to the team. Benitsubasa, get Yomi and Chiho back to our place. Take the safest route. Now. What about you? Benitsubasa asked, her voice tense. I'm going after Karasuba. Issei said, his tone deadly serious. Without waiting for a response, Issei was just about to launch himself into the sky, his wings itching to unfurl and chase down Karasuba's scent when Benitsubasa grabbed his arm, stopping him mid-motion. Hold on. She demanded, her tone sharp with frustration. You're just going to rush in after Karasuba alone. Some of us should go with you to face her. Issei didn't even glance back at her. No. It would be best if you got Chiho back to our place. That's your mission. Benitsubasa growled, her grip tightening on his arm. What is it with you? Why don't you want us to come with you? We've been training. Don't you trust us? Or do you think we're like some damsels in distress that you need to protect? Issei finally turned to face her, his eyes hard. It's not that, and you know it. Then why? She shot back, her voice rising in frustration. If it's not because you think we're weak or need protecting, then why the hell are you always rushing off on your own? Issei's patience snapped. Because I don't want you to die. He shouted, his voice echoing in the night. The team went silent, shocked by the intensity of his outburst. Benitsubasa, usually quick to argue, was left speechless. Issei's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths as he struggled to control his emotions. Issei ran a hand through his hair, his anger fading into exhaustion. I don't think any of you are weak or defenseless. I see how hard you've been working in your training, and I'm proud of you for that. But this. Karasuba. She's not like the others. She's the second most powerful Sekirei, and none of you stand a chance against her. Benitsubasa's eyes softened, but she remained quiet, waiting for him to continue. I've been holding back my full strength. Issei admitted, his gaze dropping to the ground. Not because I don't believe in you. But because I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to see fear in your eyes if you saw what I'm truly capable of. The weight of his words hung in the air, and for the first time, the team saw the burden Issei had been carrying alone. He wasn't just protecting them physically. He was shielding them from the darker parts of himself, the parts that could easily overpower anyone, even those he cared about. Issei began to spread his wings, his determination clear in his movements. He was ready to confront Karasuba alone, no matter the risk. But just as he was about to take off, Akitsu stepped forward, her cold, steady presence grounding him. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly in an embrace that felt like ice and warmth all at once. Please. Come back to us alive. She whispered, her voice soft but firm. We will never fear you, Issei. You've given us no reason to fear you. Her words pierced through the wall Issei had built around himself. He looked down at Akitsu, her gentle eyes full of trust, and for a moment, he hesitated. The weight of their loyalty, their love, made him realize that perhaps he didn't have to face this alone. Issei exhaled slowly, his wings folding slightly as he nodded. I'll come back. I promise. Akitsu stepped back, her cool touch lingering on his skin, while Benitsubasa and the others watched in silence. With one last glance at the team, Issei finally spread his wings and launched himself into the sky, chasing after Karasuba's scent. As he flew, the wind rushed past him, but the warmth of Akitsu's embrace and the unwavering loyalty of his team stayed with him, pushing him forward. He knew this battle would be dangerous, but now, more than ever, he was determined to return alive. Issei followed the scent to a nearby building with a helicopter pad and landed on the rooftop, the rain lightly drizzling around them. Karasuba stood with her blood-soaked sword in hand, waiting. Her smile was unsettling, almost tender, like a wife welcoming her husband home. But as she raised her eyes to meet his, she saw something different in him. An energy that wasn't there before, an intensity. She waved at him casually, her voice teasing. Took you long enough. Issei remained silent, cold, and focused. He picked up a pebble from the rooftop and flicked it with precise strength, sending it whistling past her cheek. The stone sliced through her skin, leaving a thin cut as it embedded into the wall behind her. Karasuba's eyes flickered in surprise, but her smile widened. Those eyes. She thought. I've only seen that look in one other person. Yume. The memory of Yume flashed through her mind, the only Sekirei who had ever been able to challenge her in spirit. She'd had those same eyes. Filled with fire, conviction, and purpose. It was thrilling. And now him. Issei Hyoudou. But this was different. Yume's fire was born from love, from Aphrodite's teachings of compassion. Issei's was born from something far more dangerous. Rage. The kind of rage that could rival even the war gods themselves. I knew it. All this time, I first saw you and felt your aura. I knew you were just like Yume. Oh, this is going to be fun, truly. Karasuba said in her mind as she then spoke to him with a taunt. You haven't said a word. Didn't you enjoy my gifts? Issei said nothing, his emerald eyes glowing with raw energy. The air crackled with electricity as the boosted gear materialized on his arm, followed by the holy sword Ascalon. Thunder rumbled in the distance, the storm gathering strength around them, as if nature itself knew the clash that was about to unfold. Your killing spree ends here, Karasuba. Issei said, his voice sharp, his fury barely contained. Not even MBI or the Game Master will save you now. Karasuba's grin widened at his defiance, her eyes glinting with something close to admiration. She licked the blood from her lip where the pebble had nicked her. Ah, the Game Master. Or as you humans call him, Minaka. However, Minaka and MBI are nothing compared to the gods of Sekirei. Issei knew of those three champions now, thanks to Kacho explaining their culture and the gods who created them as well as their champions. Yum, the embodiment of love and grace under Aphrodite, as the weaver of Bond's blessing. Mia, the champion of Palastra, the guardian of wisdom. And Karasuba, the bloodthirsty warrior. Her power came from Melchieth, the lord of blood and battle. However, in Greek mythology, Issei knew them as Aphrodite, Athena, and Ares. Just as Issei was about to charge at her, Karasuba raised her blade to her chest, the blood on it mixing with the rain. Her expression shifted, growing solemn and focused. She stabbed herself through the heart, and Issei's eyes flickered with surprise, but he held his ground. This was no self-destruction. It was a ritual. As the blade pierced her chest, Karasuba's voice rang out in a powerful chant, a prayer to her god. O mighty Melchieth, lord of blood and battle. I offer my body and soul in tribute. Unleash upon me your divine strength, so I may tear down my enemies and bathe in their agony. The air around her erupted with crimson, violent energy, her form glowing with an intense aura. As the power of Melech coursed through her, her body began to change. Her clothes darkened and became armor, while her sword became sharper, more menacing as it radiated ominous energy, like the very essence of war itself. Issei stood firm, watching as Karasuba completed her transformation. The wound in her chest healed instantly, and her presence became even more dangerous, more deadly. She pulled her sword from her chest, now glowing with power, and pointed it directly at Issei. Come on, Issei Hyoudou. She called out, her voice dripping with excitement. Let's go. Issei's eyes glowed brighter, emerald light reflecting off the rain as it fell around them. He lowered his stance, his wings unfurling as the storm rumbled louder. The power within him surged, resonating with the crackling thunder in the sky. This would be a battle unlike any other. Okay then, let's dance. Play soundtrack. Standing here, I realize. As the tension built between them, the rooftop crackled with energy. The storm raged overhead, thunder crashing like the roar of a giant, as lightning illuminated the battlefield in flashes. Karasuba's new form radiated bloodlust, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Her blade hummed with a life of its own, eager to meet flesh. Issei's focus was razor sharp, his rage tempered into cold resolve. His boosted gear thrummed with power, red energy pulsing from the gauntlet, while Ascalon gleamed in his hand. His sacred sword, forged to slay dragons and devils alike, shone with the righteous might of the heavens, a stark contrast to the unholy power radiating from Karasuba. With no more words exchanged, they launched at each other faster than the eye could track. The sound of steel meeting steel rang out like a loud bell, and sparks flew as their swords clashed in a flurry of strikes. Karasuba's blood-soaked blade danced with ruthless precision, but Issei was not deterred. His strikes came with ferocity. Each swing of Ascalon charged with the power of the boosted gear. Karasuba's movements were like a tempest. Swift, unpredictable, and deadly. She slashed at Issei with inhuman speed, her eyes glowing with battle lust. Yet Issei matched her strike for strike, dodging her attacks with expert precision. His wings propelled him through the air, allowing him to dodge and reposition with fluid grace. Their battle raged across the rooftop, the rain turning to steam as their energies collided. Every swing from Karasuba's blade left deep gouges in the concrete, while Issei's blows sent shockwaves that cracked the foundation beneath their feet. Their auras clashed, creating a vortex of power around them that seemed to pull the very storm closer. Karasuba let out a wild laugh as she brought her sword down in a deadly arc, aiming for Issei's neck. He barely blocked it, the force sending him skidding backward across the rooftop. She followed up with a spinning slash, her eyes gleaming with a sadistic thrill. Issei deflected the strike, but could feel the weight of her blows increasing with every passing second. The power granted to her by Melchieth was terrifying, and even with his boosted gear's amplified strength, he knew this wouldn't be an easy fight. Issei then managed to cut Karasuba, who was excited instead of afraid. Not bad. Karasuba grinned, blood trickling down her cheek from a small cut Issei had managed to land. But you'll have to do better than that. She charged again, her blade glowing with an evil crimson light. Issei readied himself, but as she closed the distance, she vanished from sight in a blur of speed. His eyes widened. She was faster than before. Before he could react, she reappeared behind him, her blade aimed at his back. But in that split second, Issei's instincts kicked in. He twisted just in time, blocking the strike with his boosted gear, though the impact sent a shockwave through his entire body. Karasuba didn't let up. She pressed her attack with relentless ferocity, forcing Issei on the defensive. Each strike felt heavier and more vicious, as if she was drawing strength from the battle itself. Issei could feel the bloodlust radiating from her. This was more than just a fight for her. This was her very essence, her way of living. As they locked blades once more, Karasuba leaned in, her voice a whisper filled with dangerous allure. "I can feel it, Issei Hyoudou. Come on. Show me more. Show me everything." Issei's eyes flared with emerald light, his patience running thin. "You want to see it? Fine." He pushed her back with a forceful shove and took a deep breath. His body glowed with crimson energy as he activated his next power. Explosion. Issei's strength skyrocketed as the sheer force of the boosted gear's power caused the air around him to vibrate. With a burst of speed, he closed the gap between them in an instant, his fist crashing into Karasuba's sword. The impact sent a shockwave so powerful that it shattered the rooftop beneath them, creating a crater where they stood. Karasuba staggered back, her smile finally faltering for a brief moment. Issei didn't let up. He swung Ascalon with all his might, the blade blazing with holy light as it connected with Karasuba's sword. The force of the blow sent her flying across the rooftop, slamming her into the far wall. She coughed, blood dripping from her mouth, but a grin quickly returned. This is it," she cried, her voice filled with exhilaration. "This is the fight I've been waiting for." She stood up, her body still crackling with Melchius power, and wiped the blood from her lips. "Let's take this to the next level, Issei. Show me everything you've got." Karasuba wiped the blood from her mouth and steadied herself, the excitement in her eyes burning even brighter. "You've truly pushed me, Issei. But now, I'll show you why I was chosen as Melchius champion." She held her sword with both hands, and the crimson aura surrounding her blade began to intensify. The storm above them seemed to respond, growing fiercer as the winds howled and lightning cracked across the sky. Karasuba's eyes gleamed with an almost manic thrill. Her blade began to emit a dark, malevolent energy that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat, the crimson light deepening into an abyssal black. "This is it, Issei Hyoudou," she said, her voice calm but filled with deadly intent. "The technique that earned me the name Black Sekirei." Issei's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in her power. He could feel it. The immense danger that radiated from her blade now. His boosted gear surged again as Issei readied himself. "She's serious this time. I can't hold anything back." Karasuba smirked, savoring the moment. "This is Black Heaven's blood," she announced, raising her sword high above her head. The black energy swirled around her, condensing into a massive, spiraling vortex. "A technique bestowed upon me by Melchius himself. With it, I can cut through anything. Anyone." The air around her grew heavy as the vortex of black energy began to expand, drawing in the rain and lightning from the storm. The rooftop trembled beneath the pressure of her power. Even Issei, with all his strength, could feel the weight of her technique pressing down on him. But Issei didn't waver. His mind raced as he prepared for her final strike. If this was her ultimate move, he knew he had to counter with something equally devastating. He gripped Ascalon tightly, channeling the full power of his boosted gear into the blade. "Come on," Issei shouted, which made Karasuba excited as she was already moving. She launched herself into the air, her sword raised high, and the vortex of black energy followed her as if it were alive. "This is the end, Issei," she cried out, her voice filled with the thrill of battle. Black Heaven's blood. Judgment cut. With a single devastating swing, she brought her sword down, unleashing the full force of her attack. The black energy erupted from her blade, cascading down like a tidal wave, threatening to engulf everything in its path. The clash was cataclysmic. Ascalon's holy light collided with the abyssal black energy of Karasuba's technique, and the shockwave from their clash shattered the rooftop, sending chunks of concrete flying in every direction. The storm raged even fiercer as their powers warred against one another, neither giving an inch. Issei gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of strength into his blade. The boosted gear pulsed, amplifying his power again and again, but Karasuba was relentless. Her attack was overwhelming, a force of pure destruction that threatened to consume him. The black energy twisted and turned, seeking to envelop him completely. Yet Issei held firm. With a roar of defiance, he pushed back against the tide of darkness, channeling the full might of his boosted gear and Ascalon. However, just as Ascalon began to crack, a presence appeared behind Issei as they placed their hands on his own and whispered to him, which made Issei's eyes widen until he closed his eyes as the noise of the battle and the attack consumed him. "Will you accept the gift I wish to bless you with and become my champion?" Issei recognized the voice as he nodded and opened his eyes with a symbol of a wagtail appearing behind his body. I made a vow to protect not just the ones I winged in this game, but also the others who don't wish to participate. I accept this blessing, Aphrodite. Issei said with a smirk as Aphrodite smiled at the man before her, seeing how much he'd grown emotionally and spiritually with the Sekirei healing his heart and soul. Issei's body glowed with a warm light enveloping his heart until he clenched the boosted gear and Ascalon before smiling. This is for you, Drake, and all the other users. Issei said as the gem glowed brightly, as did Ascalon before Issei shouted a familiar transformation. Balance breaker. The darkness around him was destroyed, sending Karasuba back as she looked at him in surprise, knowing that he should have been defeated until seeing a crimson pillar of power descend upon him as his familiar armor appeared, but different since this new form of his balance breaker gleamed with divine light, a testament to the blessing he had just received. With renewed strength and resolve, Issei prepared for the final confrontation. The storm raged on, but the outcome of the battle was now in his hands. As the storm raged on, Issei raised Ascalon high above his head, its blade enveloped in a brilliant crimson light. The power of his balance breaker surged through him, channeling an intense energy that illuminated the rooftop with a divine glow. Beside him, Yume stood as a spectral vision, her presence a silent testament to the bond and strength Issei had gained, since Yume was the former champion of Aphrodite. Now, Karasuba. Issei shouted, his voice filled with resolve. This is the end. In response, Karasuba's smile widened, her eyes reflecting both exhilaration and acceptance. She made no move to evade the coming attack, standing defiantly in the storm's fury. The moment felt timeless, the air thick with anticipation. With a unified roar, Issei and Yume unleashed their combined power. The crimson light from Ascalon surged forth, transforming into a massive, searing beam of energy that barreled toward Karasuba. The attack cut through the air with a blinding brilliance, a force of purifying light and righteous wrath. Karasuba's smile remained unbroken as the beam struck her. Her body was enveloped in the intense light, her form breaking apart under the overwhelming force. The rooftop trembled with the intensity of the attack, the very essence of Karasuba being torn asunder by the divine power. As the beam finally dissipated, the storm seemed to quiet, the fury of the battle giving way to a solemn stillness. Issei, his armor dimming back to its normal state, approached the wreckage where Karasuba lay. Despite her numerous injuries and the devastation wrought upon her, Karasuba's smile persisted. Issei walked with a heavy heart towards her. The once formidable warrior now lay battered and defeated, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her eyes, though dimmed by pain, still shone with a fierce pride. You fought well. Issei said softly as he knelt beside her. Thank you for the battle. Karasuba looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and satisfaction. You reminded me of what it means to fight with everything. To live truly. She managed to whisper. Thank you, Issei Hyoudou. With her final breath, Karasuba's smile remained, a testament to the warrior spirit that had defined her. Her eyes closed gently, and the light of her life flickered out, leaving Issei alone with the echoes of their fierce battle and the quiet storm that had witnessed it all. I will admit that I was impressed, though I am surprised you didn't use your balance breaker from the beginning. Santiago said, appearing before Issei until Issei replied. I didn't want to kill her at first since Mucibi believed that there was a heart in Karasub's just like Yume did before she died. And now? Santiago asked before Issei looked at the defeated body of Karasuba until he pulled out a crimson night piece. I think she'll do better under new management. Issei said, which made Santiago laugh at his rival and friend until the divine power that was in Karasuba's body went to Santiago, who was surprised but smiled at the offer from the Greek god of war. It seems we've both become the new champions of the Sekirei. Indeed. Issei said before looking at the entire western area of Shinto-Tito. I'm going to claim it as part of my territory. This will become a haven for an Ashikabi and Sekirei, winged or unwinged, to come and be free from the game. Minaka will not like this. And since when did I care about his opinion? Issei asked, which made Santiago chuckle a bit until Issei looked at Santiago and asked. So what will you do with the south? No doubt Hayata will try to take you on. Let her try. It'll be more fun to crush her in her own game. And look forward to the performance. Indeed I will. Issei said before the moon shined brightly as if it was a sign from the moon goddess that this marks the end of a dark time. Time skip. 2 weeks later. Issei moaned a bit as he woke up since it was now time for him to get ready for work since he cracked his neck while Akitsu slept next to him with no clothes on, but a smile was on her face. It had been 2 weeks since Issei clashed with Karasuba and won, which led to Issei becoming the Ashikabi of the east and north areas, which became his territory. At the same time, Santiago was amused by this and enjoyed challenging Issei to sparring matches. Yuzume was kicked out of the Izumo Inn for breaking the rule and taking the Jinkei away, but also for taking so many lives. Well granted, she was blackmailed, but if Yuzume had come to Mia, then she would have been more than happy to help Yuzume with her situation. Yuzume understood her reasons, but Issei wanted to help her, so when Chiho woke up, she was happy to be with Yuzume again and winged Yuzume as well. Which made Issei happy as he also set them up with a nice home for them to enjoy their time together in his territory so they can still be together and continue to pursue their dreams without fear of the Sekirei game. Issei spoke to Monaka about the East and told him that they would be his territory for unwinged Sekirei, and if a pair were there and resided within it, then they were under his protection. Monaka was okay with it since he was content with Issei taking his responsibilities easily, and with a little help from MBI, the western area was now repaired and ready to be used as a home and part of Issei's territory. Issei didn't move out of his home since he liked it and sure made some extra rooms with some magic for his Sekirei and even the newest knight of the group. "Oh. I'm sorry." The new Sekirei apologized as she bowed with Issei, smiling at the girl and patting her head. "It's okay, Karasuba. How are you this morning?" "Yep." Karasuba wore a black and grey maid outfit made by Yuzume. The odd part is that after Issei reincarnated her, the power that was given to her by Ares basically erased her mind, meaning when she woke up, Karasuba lacked her memories and personality. The old Karasuba was dead and a new one was left in her place. Musubi took care of her and taught her, which is probably the reason she turned out so innocent and kind. However, Issei also had a feeling it was due to Kusano, since the life and death Sekirei loved being around Karasuba and it helped her adjust to her new role. Karasuba blushed brightly, trying not to look at them. "I'm sorry." "Ah, Issei. Ah. It's just that you promised that we could try too. I mean, later is good too." All the Sekirei found it so strange that the most fierce Sekirei was now so timid and would blush whenever she was near Issei. They also found it strange that when she was with Issei, Karasuba was the most passionate Sekirei. It was almost as if she was desperate for his love and affection, and many thought it was because the first Karasuba hadn't known love at all. "Ah, if you'd like to get dressed, we have everyone waiting." Karasuba told him before Issei kissed her lips, which made Karasuba moan with a large blush as she submitted to the kiss until it ended with her purring for more affection, which amused Issei since Karasuba was innocent and kind outside of battle, but when she was given a sword, a bit of her old self reemerged as if her fighting instincts never left, resulting in Karasuba having her battle side and her soft side with a touch of innocence. "Let's go, Karasuba," Issei said as he put on his clothes before kissing Karasuba's cheeks, which made her smile more until they left his room with Akitsu, who seemed to glow a bit more, albeit with a small imp, due to the fun she and Issei had last night. Issei was happy with his Sekirei and surprised when he told them that he was now the champion of Aphrodite. He made the girls congratulate him until Issei felt his heart and soul heal more, since Mia had explained that as the champion of Aphrodite, Issei would be able to sense and see the feelings of those around him like an aura. Issei also spent more time with Mia since, at first, he wanted her advice on how to be a champion. Still, it was also nice to spend time with her until the two of them began to date since they felt a sense of understanding between them and Mia greatly enjoyed Issei's company. Still, Kagari seemed to be distant from Issei and the Red Dragon Emperor was unsure why. Matsu, on the other hand, was amazed and excited about testing Issei's power. Still, Mia quickly stopped it with a conversation, even though Issei said he didn't mind Matsu testing his powers since he was unsure about the blessing Aphrodite had given him. All in all, the north and eastern areas were peaceful, but the problem still lay with the south, since Hayata wished to play one last game with Santiago, and it would be a terrifying one for Hayata, that is, Kuo Town. It was a summer evening in Kuo City. The sun was setting, and the couples were happy as they enjoyed the evening talking about their date or school events. Everyone was truly happy. Well, almost everyone. There was a sad, lonely soul in the park. Her name was Akeno Himejima. She decided to take a walk to clear her head. Over the past few days, Greg has been getting better at using his head when it comes to using his sacred gear. However, there were times when he got too emotional and began to revert to using brute force, but Akeno could tell that he wanted to get stronger to prove that Issei was weak. Greg believed that Issei was a weak kid now that he was no longer bad at the boosted gear and that he couldn't actually do any of the stuff he was able to accomplish without the long-eyeness. It made Akeno a bit mad when she heard him bashing him and making him seem weaker since, if she was being honest with herself, Issei was stronger than any of them. Stronger than her, Riaz, Kaneko, Kiba, Gasper, Zenobia, even Irina. But it's not just because of long-eyeness that he was able to accomplish his accomplishments. It's because Issei did things that no one else expected him to do. He blew expectations away when he first defeated Riser in battle. Granted, he was lucky, but he still won't fight with determination and willpower. One thing that Akeno was jealous of about Issei was that he was selfless, and granted many times, he could have asked for compensation, but he didn't. Issei wasn't a greedy person and cared more about the feelings of others than himself. Akeno was unsure if Issei knew of the many people who would help him because of what he had done for them during the war and after. He also possibly didn't know of the political power he had, since many of the leaders were touched by Issei's actions when he helped them, especially the Yokai, the Norse, and even the Greek faction, which surprised Akeno, since many of the gods were extremely arrogant and looked down on most humans, unless they earned their respect. Akeno recalled thanking Issei for his kindness and compassion after she told him of her mother's death. Before she met him, Akeno had problems with her heritage, which led to her fallout with Barakiel, her father. When Rainer killed Issei, she left a scar on his heart and made him dislike fallen angels, or, rather, the feeling of falling in love after how Rainer played him like a violin. Akeno confronted him about it and revealed to him that she had partly fallen, but he replied with a smile. He told her he didn't like fallen angels, but he still liked Akeno, because Akeno is still Akeno. Later, he became the reason Akeno and Barakiel reconciled and started talking again. Eventually, Akeno depended on him as her emotional support, something to help her get on her feet when she was losing her strength or felt like giving up. Issei would be there to carry her back and help her when she needed it. Akeno had been reminiscing for too long and had lost track of how long she had been walking, so she didn't notice a tree root sticking out of the ground. Ah. Oof. Groaning and rubbing her head, Akeno opened her eyes and gasped at where she had run into after her fall. It was a small overlook located a ways away from the neighborhood in which the orc lived. It was where Issei had taken her before the battle against Trihexa. It was where they promised each other their futures. The memory was as clear as day to her. That was the day that Issei and Akeno had a moment that would have made her truly know how much she meant to the man who gave her so much and never asked for anything in return. Flashback. Issei-kun. Akeno looked at Issei curiously as he took her hand and led her down the road. Issei had a happy grin on his face as he led her up the road, climbing up the hill. Huh. Oh, Akeno-san, don't worry. You're going to love this place. I showed it to Riaz a while back on our second date and we come here frequently when we go alone. Issei said, grinning. Akeno smiled warmly, a light blush dusting her cheeks. The two walked in comfortable silence for several more minutes until Issei went off the road and down a dirt path. Curious, Akeno merely followed along, appreciating the wildlife around her. Birds chirped happily while critters chattered amongst each other in the trees. It was at times like this that Akeno forgot about the war against the Cows Brigade. The war against Rizavam Live and Lucifer. It was just an ideal peace. And it was one that they would be willing to sacrifice themselves for, just for more days like this. These were days when all that mattered were your looks, grades, and next food or whatever it was people desired. But for one, Akeno Himejima, all she wanted was more. More peaceful moments with her beloved Issei. Here we are. Issei said as he let go of her hand. He gestured dramatically to it. Akeno marveled at how beautifully simple it all was. It wasn't grand, nor did it possess the alluring beauty that meadows that painters gazed upon had. But it was charming in its way. Before, she was a cliff meadow filled with several species of flowers, the most abundant being the white daisy. A gentle breeze wafted past them, making all the flowers sway and dance gently. Akeno smiled at the scenery. No wonder Issei and Riaz came here often. What it lacked in majesty, it made up for in its simplicity. Irina and I used to come here a lot when we were kids. Issei said. He knelt next to a rock where they etched their names with a knife that Irina had swiped from her father. Well, back then, he was unaware that she was a girl, something she never let him live down. A distant memory of a childhood long gone. Two besties forever. He smiled, and his eyes drifted down to another etch in the rock. IRA bond unbreakable. Issei. Akeno said. She glanced over his shoulder and saw the etches in the rock. Wanna have a go at it? Issei asked. What about the others? Akeno asked. I was planning to bring them up here one by one, but for now, it's your turn. Do you want to carve our names? Issei asked, handing her a small knife. Adding more girls to your little official harem tally? Akeno asked teasingly as she knelt next to him. Haha. That's cute, but it's not like that. This here rock shall be proof that I, Issei Hyoudou, have gone to where no man has gone before. I also wanted to thank you for being so patient with me. I know we haven't spent a lot of time together since my therapy sessions, schoolwork, and helping out with the rebuilding has taken some time, so I wanted to take you out someplace special before we get back to our lives. Issei explained, which made Akeno smile at his thoughtfulness before giggling at Issei's small speech. Of course. Let's start, but mine will be different from theirs. Akeno said, positioning the knife's blade on the rock. And flashback. Akeno smiled as a tear rolled down her cheek. Her fingers traced over the etch that she and Issei had created on the rock in front of her. Ordained by heaven and hell themselves. May they be forever entwined and have a bond greater than any before them and after them. Issei and his beautiful fallen angel Akeno. Akeno laughed at herself as she read what she wrote. A bond greater than before and after them. That's what I wrote, so why? Why did I do it? Why did I cheat on him? I have asked myself that same question for the past few days, and unfortunately, I learned that lesson the hard way. A voice said, making Akeno turn around to see Irina, with a sorrowful look on her face, coming out of the forest as she continued until she stopped at the rock. Akeno wondered what made the girl look so sad. Irina always had that bright smile on her face, but now she looked like she had lost everything. Irina, what's wrong? Irina didn't answer her and walked next to the stone. I remember when Issei and I etched our names into the stone. I thought this meant I would be with him forever and stand by his side, but it seems my stupidity was the cause and reason I'll never be with him again. I blame no one but myself for being so caught up in that whirlwind of emotions and my selfishness that I never even bothered to tell Issei about my relationship with Ayano. If I had told him, then maybe we could have worked it out and I would ask for forgiveness from not just my folks, Issei's family, but also Gabriel and Michael for the pain that I gave them when they learned I committed one of the worst sins. Akeno didn't understand but just kept listening, to which Irina sighed. She then took off her shirt and let her wings out. Look at this. Her wings appeared and Akeno gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. She looked at them in shock. Why, you're a fallen. Irina's wings, which were white as snow and pure, were now black as night and her halo was shattered. Irina sniffed a bit and cried at the sight of them before she responded to Akeno. I didn't even realize my wings had turned black until yesterday. Ayano doesn't know, in case you're wondering. Akeno hugged her and asked how this even happened. What happened? Irina wipes away her tears and responds. It happened just last night when I went out for a late night walk, thinking about the game that's to come. Flashback. Irina was walking down the sidewalk as she thought about the upcoming ratings game. Ayano is getting better at using her powers, and her skills with the sword are improving thanks to Kiba, even though he goes a bit rough on her. It's good for fighting enemies who are only magic-based users like bishops and most queens, but she has to work on her stamina and not let her arrogance blind her, since she's been obsessed with defeating Issei at said ratings game. Irina was so lost in thought she didn't notice that someone was following her and reading her thoughts. Gabriel was watching the girl from afar by orders from her brother. Michael and Gabriel knew what had happened to Issei, given the report, but they had to see it with their own eyes. Granted, neither Gabriel nor Michael were enraged with Irina dating a woman, but it was the fact that Irina was cheating on her boyfriend when he did nothing to warrant this act of betrayal. Gabriel truly cared for Issei and remembered hearing and being taught what the emotion called love was, since Issei was fun to talk to during their therapy sessions. As his guardian angel, Gabriel wished to help him in his darkest moment when he lost his best friend, Drake. For the longest time, as she watched Issei grow into the man he was now, Gabriel felt that strange emotion inside of her heart. She thought of Issei and the great things about him, so when she asked her brother what this emotion was, his answer was a simple and confusing one. Gabriel. That feeling you have is called love. It's something that even we angels have. You deserve to fall in love and find out if the one who took your heart is the right one for you. Gabriel later asked Griselda, Seraphol, Penemu and Barkwheel what love was. Their answers left her with many questions, but she needed confirmation about these feelings. So one night, while Issei was asleep by himself in his room, exhausted from the workload and crashing for the night, Gabriel snuck in and saw that he looked like he was having some nightmare. Issei's face was dry with tears, and he whispered, I'm sorry, Drake. Please forgive me. Gabriel was sad in seeing the man she loved suffering like this. Why aren't the girls aware of this? However, she decided to think about it later as she eyed Issei's sleeping face and gently rubbed his hair so she didn't wake him. Her touch made Issei freeze for a second, but then relax, which made her smile as Gabriel saw his breathing soften and his face relax as if he were having a good dream. It'll be alright, my love. I know Drake is happy and is watching over you just like I am. Gabriel looked at his lips and her heart began to beat fast. She leaned into the lips and a second later, their lips connected and her heart felt like it exploded in passion and love. Gabriel was shocked when her body moved on its own and her tongue tasted Issei's mouth. Issei moaned and kissed back, to the angel's delight. The feeling grew as her body became excited, but then she realized that if she continued, she could be in serious trouble. She let go of his lips and kissed his forehead. Good night, Issei. Have wonderful dreams and know that your guardian angel is always here for you. I look forward to our next therapy session. Gabriel said as she vanished before anyone sensed her presence. But if she stuck around a bit longer, she would have felt a portal open from the dimensional gap. A certain black-haired loli floated to Issei's body and saw him in a relaxed state. Office looked at the window and had a tiny smile on her face as she thanked the angel for helping her big brother figure. Thank you, angel, for helping Issei. I am curious about the women who aren't with him. Sadly, I have to go back so soon to ensure that the seals are set. Farewell for now, Issei, my brother and friend. Office said before she walked back into the portal and vanished. After that night, Gabriel returned and informed her brother what had occurred. Michael was curious about this. "And you're sure Irina, Zenobia, and Asia weren't there?" Gabriel nodded. "I'm sure of it. They appeared to be suffering a night terror from the trauma of not just the war, but also losing Drake. The two respected each other and looked out for each other like brothers, but I was able to calm him down." Michael nodded at this before replying with an order. "Keep an eye on Irina for me. With everything going on, I can't watch her, but I can make it so you can spy on her and find out if she really did betray Issei from the report Santiago gave to Azazel." Gabriel nodded and mentally prepared herself. Why do I feel like there's more than meets the eye? Ever since that day, Gabriel has used a human persona to blend in with Kuo City and follow the church trio undetected. After seeing the trio with different individuals on dates, Gabriel was definitely suspicious, as the three had been with different men, one of whom was Ayano, for the past few months. She thought they were just friends because she didn't want to believe it after Issei had done so much for the trio, especially Asia and Zenvoya. Still, after asking a few members of the school under her alter ego, Gabriel learned they were actually dating. Many of the girls at said college who were from Kuo Academy were jealous of the orc girls, but were badmouthing Issei since they thought that the perverted beast finally went too far and the girls decided to leave him so he could die alone. Gabriel had to contain her rage at the comments about Issei and continued her investigation until she saw Irina drop off her girlfriend at her home that night. Gabriel saw Irina's aura and gasped at what she saw before her eyes, which had a sign of pity in them. "Oh Irina. What have you done?" Gabriel said before she flew down and appeared before Irina. "Irina, we need to talk." Irina was surprised at the sudden appearance of Gabriel and bowed. Lady Gabriel. What brings you here? Have you been with Issei lately or know of his night terrors?" Irina's eyes had a little rage at the mention of the dragon until she smiled. "No, I haven't lately." Gabriel decided to get this over with since she needed to confirm what she detected from her aura. "Irina, show me your wings." "But why?" "Your aura is different now, so show me your wings." Irina was confused but summoned her wings and was shocked when she saw Gabriel gasp. "Irina. I'm afraid you can no longer be my brother, Ace." Irina gasped at this and asked. "But why not? What's wrong with them?" Gabriel turned Irina to the window of the shop they were in front of and she gasped when she saw her wings. Irina's wings were no longer white as snow and her halo cracked before it disappeared. Tears began to form in her eyes. Irina turned to Gabriel, who sadly shook her head. "I'm disappointed in you, Irina. I truly thought you would never fall and break your promise to your father, your mother, me, and my brother. Especially to Issei, the man you proclaimed so much that you loved him." Gabriel said as she held out her hand and the ace card flew out of Irina. Irina still had her fallen wings as she cried, seeing the card leave her body. "Irina Hyoudou. As of this moment, you are no longer the ace of Michael. I am sorry, but for the rest of your life, you are now fallen. I am disappointed in you, my child, since Michael and your parents didn't want to believe you when we heard you. You betrayed Issei and lied to his face for months." Gabriel said before Irina tried to reason with Gabriel. Lady Gabriel, please let me explain. Why you don't understand. I do understand. I understand that, apparently, Issei was never enough for you. You never loved Issei for who he was. You love your girlfriend who doesn't care about Issei at all and is jealous since he had something she didn't get, like a child being envious of another child having a toy they wanted but they didn't get. Gabriel said before holding up a file and showing the pictures of Irina and Ayano on many dates. And you even lied to not just myself, but you betrayed the trust that my brother and your parents had in you. Please. Lady Gabriel, let me explain. Irina begged as she didn't want this to be real, but Gabriel, who was like a second mother figure to her, looked away from her. I can't. You lied to me once, and you'll do it again. Have a great life with your girlfriend Irina. Farewell. Gabriel vanished after, giving Irina a look of disappointment, leaving Irina alone and crying. And flashback. Akeno was surprised as she listened to the former angel's story. Irina looked at Akeno and sighed. So now you know. I'm no longer an angel. I'm a fallen. Akeno hugged Irina and asked. Are you planning on talking to your parents? They will wonder why, especially your father. Irina sighs. I haven't figured out what my next move is, but I do know that this is something I will have to live with for the rest of my life. And maybe this is my form of punishment for betraying the man who saved me multiple times, who turned my existence upside down. The same man who was my childhood friend, and I promised him that I would never betray him. I'm truly worse than that fallen angel who killed Issei. I really am just a dumb bimbo. Irina said before she cried her tears, and Akeno couldn't do anything but hug the saddened girl and rub her back with her hands. Akeno looked back in the night sky. Issei. I truly am like Rainer. I stomped on your feelings and didn't even bother trying to understand what you were going through. Forgive this foolish and selfish woman for her stupidity. Just please come back. That was a night of sorrow and regret. But these two maidens weren't the only ones suffering the consequences of their actions. With Asia and Santiago. Santiago and Asia were walking to Kuo Park. The two were on a date, but at the restaurant, they weren't exactly talking. Over the past week, Santiago has been giving his girlfriend the cold shoulder and hasn't been talking with much emotion, like he was disappointed in her or something. Asia didn't know why because she thought she had done something to him. When they reached the park, Santiago looked at the fountain and asked, "Asia Argento?" Asia was scared because he had never spoken to her like that before. "Why yes." Her legs were shaking from fear as Santiago turned around and asked, "Were you and Issei still engaged when we started dating? And don't lie to me. I will know." Asia stuttered a bit and looked at Santiago. "And no. Of course not." Santiago sighed as he turned around and looked into her eyes. He rubbed his hand in his hair and shook his head. "I should have known you would say that. Despite having evidence against you and giving you a chance to confess, you still refused and proceeded to lie to me, Asia. I really thought you were a good person, given what Issei told me about you, but now that you've spat in the chance to confess your sins and lies, I cannot keep dating you, Asia." "Why you knew? For how long?" Santiago stopped walking away and looked back at her. "It doesn't matter since it doesn't change the fact that you lied to me about your relationship with Issei. I knew the two of you dated, along with Riaz, Akeno, Kaneko, Irina, and Zenobia. Each one of you loved him, and after hearing everything that he did for every one of you, I admired him, especially as a king, since I was hoping to face him in the Azazel Cup. He was one of the true kings that I admired, as well as Sayarag, Vali, Sona, and even Rizer, since he's changed after his defeat against Issei." Santiago continued as he looked into the sky. He extended his hand to the moon and tried to catch it but couldn't. "Issei Hyoudou was someone I truly admired and respected since Issei was part of a rare group. A human child who had no affinity for magic, no descendant who knew of the supernatural. He wasn't part of an ancient legend or prophecy, or even had any knowledge of this moonlit world. Still, yet he was able to do much more than even some of the most powerful beings in this world. I guess it's because he did things differently than they did. He didn't give a care about what people said about him. He was called childish, naive, spineless, weak, perverted, and pathetic, but he didn't care about what others called him. He still pushed his body past his limits, even when it seemed like it was all over for him, and he still stood tall, continuing to fight, and never gave in no matter what." Santiago said before pulling out a photo of him in a Kuo Academy uniform. "I was a senior when I had heard of him, but kept my identity a secret due to my foolish brother. I remember some of my classmates calling him the incarnation of lust, but I believe he truly is the incarnation of love. He is a dragon that will never falter or fall. He says what he wants to say and will do what Issei wants, but he will always live according to his own accord. He'll defend the weak and helpless. He'll fight others who dare harm others, but if some don't wish to fight, he will be there as a friend and heal them." Asia was so shocked by the confession she couldn't say anything before Santiago turned back around to look at her in the eyes. "I'll still fight in the Azazel Cup, but with my peerage. Granted, I wanted you to suffer for what you did to him. However, Issei told me and Michael to let you continue to pray even though you are a devil since, despite the pain you caused him, Issei still cared for you, and whatever relationship we had is over. I can't be with a woman who would dare betray the one man and say right to his face that she loved him with all her heart, only for her to betray him in the worst way possible. Farewell Asia Argento. Have a great fucking life." Asia didn't do anything but watch Santiago leave her in the park to her thoughts. Asia thought back to her time in Kuo City. She remembered all of the time she spent with Issei. How much he cared for her and spoiled her. How much he loved her. He even went into Juggernaut Drive because she was too weak and was angered at the thought of her death. Asia felt water touch her cheek, and when she felt it, she was surprised. "These are tears," Asia said before she cried her heart out, feeling the pain of no longer being with the man she truly loved. Her heart cried to her soul to go back with Issei, beg him for forgiveness, and ask for a second chance, but her mind told her it was too late. "Do you truly deserve to shed tears? Pathetic girl, and you say I'm a monster? How fair for the pot calling the kettle black." Asia gasped at the voice as she turned to see no one. "Who are you? Answer me. I am a bishop of the GREMORY household, so tell me who you are and where you are." No one answered her until the voice came back. "Who am I? I am another possessor of twilight healing, but it was only for a short time. Don't you remember me killing you in front of the man we both loved? I realized my foolishness when I kept watching from inside of you. I don't understand. The only other person who used my power was..." Asuka said as her eyes widened in shock before yelling aloud. "But that's impossible. You're dead." The voice started to laugh. Asia heard laughter until she realized something. "Wait, the one who's laughing?" Asia's body was laughing, and her eyes were closed as she laughed. "Is me?" Her head was lifted. Asia's right eye turned purple and a wicked smile formed on her face. It's been a while since I had a body of my own. Asia was scared as she struggled to fight against whoever was inside of her. Tell me, who are you? Rainer is dead, so why are you doing this? Give me back my body. Asia shouted before her body laughed and replied. You really don't recognize me by my voice. Then again, it has been a long time since we've seen each other, so perhaps this name will ring a bell. Fallen Angel, Rainer. Surely you remember me? Asia's left eye widened as she now knew the invader was none other than Rainer, the fallen angel that killed not just her, but also Issei. But how? The twilight healing can't house souls like the boosted gear or divine dividing can, so how? The right eye had a calm look as Rainer replied. That simple. Before I truly died, my body had been destroyed beyond healing, but I didn't want to leave since, at first, I hated how Issei had the boosted gear, so I stuck my soul within twilight healing and watched everything you saw, heard, felt, and much more. I wanted to get revenge on him for humiliating me since I didn't care since I've killed many humans during my life because of my orders. However, while I possessed the twilight healing, I saw how Issei grew and knew my soul was in pain. I didn't understand at first why I was in pain until I realized that I was in love with him. After that revelation, I always tried to find a way to tell him, but all I could do was observe and watch from within the sacred gear. Before my death, I was in love with Azazel, but after watching and seeing Azazel, I wondered. Why did I fall in love with him in the first place? It was then I knew I wasn't in love with him. I lusted for him because I wanted someone to look at me with the same admiration he had in his eyes when he was with his wife. Rainer said while moving Asia's body to the park bench that she was glad no one was around before continuing her story. Azazel could never return the feelings I had for him, but I saw how Issei always stood up for everyone. How he took the burden on his shoulders, how he hid his fear, endured all the beatings, and did so much by knocking some sense into the lot of you. However, I was truly disappointed in you when you insulted him that one day just because he didn't call Riaz by her name. She had to realize that she had said to call her but you. She tried to rape him when she was trying to get out of an arranged marriage. She was a possessive woman who only cared about herself. Rainer said with a hint of rage, while her eyes glowed a bit before calming down and continuing. After the battle of the 666, Trihexa, I saw you cheat on Santiago, who was a good man, mind you, and that you went behind Issei's back, lied to the one you were dating. Brutally insulted Issei, abandoned him when he was going through a lot, and then when you realized your mistake, you went on to believe that you and Issei could be together after breaking him in the worst way. Rainer said that she had no right to talk since she hurt Issei as well, but wanted to punish Asia for what she did to him. And because of those reasons, I could never allow you to harm his heart. I'll be taking over and showing you why I'm much better than you. And perhaps, I can kill two birds with one stone. Oh, don't worry. You won't remember any of this. So bye-bye for now. Wah. Asia said before she collapsed on the bench. The rings flowed with a purple aura and then faded. A minute later, Asia woke up and rubbed her head. Oh, my head. Asia opened her eyes, and they were back to normal. Wait, what happened to me? I remember Santiago breaking up with me, but what happened after that? Asia didn't notice as her shadow began to take the form of angel wings. Don't worry, Asia. I'll let you have control for now, but only because I need you to be my puppet for a while longer, until I have what I need to be reborn fully, and once I take over your body, I can make some changes to this stupid body. An old enemy has returned and is out for vengeance, so the orc girls better sleep with an eye open. And now, the last one, Zenobia and her boyfriend Makoto. The streets of Kua were quiet, save for the soft sounds of footsteps echoing through the night. Zenobia Quarta walked with a confident sway beside her boyfriend, Makoto I2, her hand linked with his. She had never felt more alive. Makoto was different from Issei. He was exciting, free-spirited, and, most of all, willing. He didn't hesitate when she proposed taking their relationship to the next level. Unlike Issei, who always found excuses or hesitated when she tried to push things further, Makoto embraced her fully. And she loved it. She had spent months wrapped up in this new thrilling relationship, enjoying the pleasure he offered and the excitement of someone who truly wanted her without reservations. Slowly, she had drifted away from Issei, dismissing his kindness, strength, and sacrifices. But tonight, something felt off. Makoto had been acting distant lately, and his usual charm had slightly faded. Zenobia was no fool. She had noticed the way his eyes wandered and the way his interest in her seemed to dwindle. Makoto, is something wrong? Zenobia asked, squeezing his hand. Makoto smirked, shoving his free hand into his pocket. Nah, babe. Just thinking about how long we've been together, you know. Zenobia frowned. What do you mean? Before he could answer, a voice cut through the air like a blade. Zenobia Quattro. The weight of authority, of sheer disappointment, made her blood freeze. She turned around, and there, standing with her arms crossed, eyes sharp with cold fury, was Griselda Quarta. Her mentor. Her guardian. Her mother. Makoto blinked at the newcomer, then let out a chuckle. Hey, who's the old lady? Zenobia didn't even have time to warn him before Griselda moved. In an instant, she struck Makoto with a palm to the chest. The force sent him flying backward, slamming into a lamppost with a sickening crack. He crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. Makoto. Zenobia shouted, stepping forward. Only to freeze as Griselda's piercing gaze locked onto her. You will not speak. Griselda commanded, and for the first time in a long time, Zenobia felt small under her mother, since this felt worse than when Griselda spoke to her after the fact she became a devil. You. My daughter. Griselda began, her voice eerily calm. The Lord himself chose you. You were blessed with his sacred swords, given a purpose few could ever hope to bear. You swore an oath. To protect, to uphold the ideals of our faith. And yet. Zenobia swallowed hard. Mother, Silence. The authority in her voice made Zenobia stiffen as she heard that voice only when she really screwed up. You turned your back on your duty. You turned your back on the man who gave you everything, the one who saved your life, who accepted you when even you chose to leave the church and angel faction. And for what? Griselda's eyes flickered to Makoto's unconscious form, her lips curling in disgust. A boy who whispers sweet lies in your ear. The playboy who has no loyalty, no strength, and no honor. Tell me, Zenobia, did you truly think this would last? Zenobia clenched her fists. Makoto is a child. Griselda interrupted. A weak, pathetic, selfish child who used you for pleasure, and you let him get under your skin with his honeyed words and lies. The words hit harder than any attack. Because deep down, Zenobia knew it was true. She had noticed Makoto's wandering eyes and felt his growing disinterest. But she ignored it, blinded by the temporary thrill he provided. She thought they could make it work, but in doing so, she had thrown away something far greater. You abandoned Issei. Griselda continued, stepping closer, her voice now dripping with disappointment. A man who bled for you. Who stood against gods, devils, and even the beast of apocalypse for you. Who never asked for anything in return. And where were you when he needed you the most? Griselda's expression hardened. Nowhere because you betrayed him. Zenobia's breath hitched. You chose lust over loyalty. Griselda went on mercilessly as she pushed Zenobia back. Selfishness over sacrifice. You turned your back on the one man who would have never abandoned you. And now, Zenobia. She held out her hand. You are no longer worthy of the swords you carry. Zenobia's heart pounded. What? Durandal and Excalibur no longer recognize you as their wielder. Griselda stated firmly. Surely you felt them becoming heavier throughout the past few months, or were you too busy being screwed by him that you didn't notice at all? They do not serve the faithless and deem you unworthy. Zenobia felt it before she even tried. Durandal, once a natural extension of her soul, now felt heavy and distant. The warmth it had always provided her was gone. No. She whispered, horror settling in. Give me the swords, Zenobia. Her hands trembled as she reached for Durandal, begging for it to respond. But the once mighty blade remained cold. Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. With no other choice, she unsheathed both Durandal and Excalibur and let them go. The moment they left her grasp, they glowed faintly in response to Griselda's presence. Zenobia felt like she had lost a piece of her very soul. You have fallen from what grave you had, Zenobia. Griselda said softly, no longer filled with rage but with pity. You are no longer a knight of the church, nor are you the same warrior I raised. But most of all, you are not the same daughter that I raised and loved. Zenobia choked back a sob. What happens to me now? Griselda sighed. That is for you to decide. But know this. Issei Hyoudou. The man you cast aside like nothing. He will never show you the same trust again, and now you will have to live with the fact that you were one of the reasons why. But that, she turned on her heel, taking Durandal and Excalibur with her, leaving Zenobia standing in the empty street, broken and alone. Until she stopped, shocking Zenobia before Griselda spoke one last time. I actually thought you genuinely loved him for more than the boosted gear, but now I was wrong to think you changed. I still care for you, Zenobia, and you have a place at my home, but I can never look at you the same again. Griselda said that before leaving her daughter alone. Zenobia truly understood the weight of her sins for the first time in her life. Ria's GREMORY had faced countless trials in her life, from the flames of Riser Phoenix to the brutal battles against the evil dragons. She had endured challenges that tested her strength as a devil and her resolve as a leader. Yet, standing in front of her furious parents, Venelana and Zeoticus GREMORY, she felt fear unlike any battle she had ever fought. Her big brother, Surzich's Lucifer, stood to the side, his usual gentle smile nowhere to be found. His piercing gaze bore into her with disappointment that stung more than any physical wound. Beside him, Graphia stood as still as a statue, her expression unreadable, but the disapproval in her eyes was clear. Riaz instinctively opened her mouth to demand an explanation, but before she could speak, her mother's sharp glare froze the words in her throat. Then Alana let out a tired sigh before addressing her daughter. Riaz GREMORY. We have allowed many things, but this truly takes the cake. Riaz stiffened. Mother, I don't understand. Then allow me to explain. Then Alana's voice was firm, but laced with an undeniable anger. For centuries, the House of GREMORY has stood for loyalty, honor, and love. We take care of those we cherish. And yet, my daughter, the heiress of this house, has thrown away the very foundation of what makes us who we are. Ria's eyes widened in shock. What? I haven't done anything that. You betrayed Issei. Riaz felt her blood run cold at her father's words. She opened her mouth to refute it, to defend herself, but Xiaudicus raised his hand, silencing her. Do not insult our intelligence by lying, Riaz. Xiaudicus continued. We know everything. Every detail. We know how you dismissed him, how you allowed your pride and selfishness to blind you. You pushed him away, manipulated his emotions, and when he needed you the most, you abandoned him. Riaz clenched her fists, trying to keep her composure. I never meant to hurt him. But you did. Surzich's voice, calm yet filled with a heavy disappointment, made her flinch. Time and time again, you took Issei's devotion for granted. You expected him always to be there, to endure your mistakes and your selfishness. But he was never your possession, Riaz. He was a person who gave you everything. And you threw it away. Graphia stepped forward now, her cold silver eyes locking onto Riaz. Issei Hyoudou is a man who earned respect from beings far above devils. Dragons, gods, even angels. He protected this world more times than most devils can claim in their lifetimes. And you, who claimed to love him, treated him like an accessory rather than a partner. Ria's legs felt weak. She wanted to argue, to justify her actions, but deep down, she knew they were right. Then Alana's voice softened, but the disappointment remained. We gave you freedom, Riaz. We allowed you to choose your path, your love. And yet, in the end, you acted like a spoiled child who assumed she would never face the consequences of her actions. Xiaudicus eyed, shaking his head. You have not only disgraced yourself but also the name of GREMORY. And unlike before, we will not protect you from the consequences of your choices. Ria's breath hitched. What? What does that mean? Then Alana narrowed her eyes. It means that as of this moment, your status as the heiress of House GREMORY is under review. Should we find you unfit, we will disinherit you and name Milikas as the next heir. Riaz staggered back as if she had been physically struck. No. You can't do that. I am the next head of. A title is meaningless if the one who holds it lacks the qualities required to lead. Surzich's interrupted, his voice colder than she had ever heard it. You still have a chance. Xiaudicus said. But you will need to prove that you deserve to carry the name of GREMORY. Until then, you will be under strict observation. Riaz felt a lump in her throat. And what of Issei? Then Alana gave her a pointed look. That is for him to decide. If he chooses never to speak to you again, then that is a consequence you will have to live with. You made your choices, Riaz. Now, you must accept the results. Riaz bit her lip, trying to hold back the emotion swirling inside her. She had always assumed Issei would be there, that no matter what, he would never abandon her. But she had taken too much for granted. And now, she was paying the price. As her family turned away, leaving her to her thoughts, Riaz felt the crushing weight of reality settles over her. For the first time in her life, she truly understood what it meant to lose. As the rest of the family left the room, Alana lingered, her sharp gaze fixed on Riaz. The younger GREMORY could feel the weight of her mother's disappointment pressing down on her like an unbearable force. Come with me. Alana said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Riaz hesitated but followed obediently as her mother led her to a smaller, more private sitting room. The door shut behind them with an ominous finality, and for a few moments, there was only silence. Alana stood with her back to Riaz, arms crossed, before finally turning around, her piercing blue eyes locking onto her daughter's. Tell me the truth, Riaz. She said, her voice quieter now but no less firm. Did you truly love Issei? Riaz flinched, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. I did, mother. I always have. Alana's expression darkened. Then why? She asked. Why betray him with that pathetic excuse of a man? With Greg. He is not even a quarter of the man Issei was to you. Ria's breath hitched. She had known this confrontation was coming, but facing it head-on was far more painful than she had expected. Her mother's words cut deep, but there was also something else beneath them. Something even worse than anger. Disappointment. Tears stung at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I felt neglected, mother. Riaz finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ever since we started college, everything changed. My responsibilities as a GREMORY heiress only grew. I was balancing my studies and my duties and trying to prove myself, all while Issei was just as busy. School, his therapy, his contracts. We barely had time for each other. Then Alana's expression remained unreadable. And that justified what you did? No. Ria shook her head, guilt twisting her stomach. I never wanted to betray him, but I was emotionally starving, mother. I felt unseen. For months, I felt like I was existing, not living. Issei and I kept missing each other. We never had time to talk or connect. And one night, Akeno convinced me to go to a college singles party, to mingle and try to feel something again. Then Alana's lips pressed into a thin line. And that's where you met him. Ria's nodded slowly, shame washing over her. Greg was there. He was charming and attentive. And he noticed me. He saw me when I felt invisible, and for the first time in months, I felt wanted again. She swallowed hard, looking away. Akeno was with me, too, and things changed. Then Alana exhaled sharply, shaking her head. So, you mean to tell me that instead of confronting your loneliness, instead of speaking to Issei and working through your problems, you ran into another man's arms? Did you ever once consider what he was going through? His struggles? Or did you only think about yourself? Ria's flinched, her mother's words striking her like a blade to the heart. I did think about him. She murmured, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. But I was weak. I made a mistake. I know that now. Then Alana stepped closer, her presence imposing. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is a careless argument where you say something regretful. What you did, Ria's, was not a simple mistake. It was a choice. A selfish, destructive choice. She narrowed her eyes. And tell me this. Does Greg truly love you? Or were you just a convenient escape for each other? Ria's trembled, unable to answer. Because deep down, she already knew the truth. Greg wasn't Issei. And he never would be. Then Alana took a deep breath, her gaze cold and unwavering. Do you have any idea what you've done, Riaz? She asked, her tone sharp as a blade. Do you understand the magnitude of your actions? Riaz swallowed hard, but before she could even attempt to respond, her mother continued. We are doing everything in our power to prevent this from turning into a massive political crisis. Then Alana said, her voice seething with restrained anger. Do you realize how many factions trust and care about Issei? The Yaokai, the Greeks, and the Norse are behind him and will support him, and now even the other royal families are questioning whether we knew about your betrayal. Riaz paled, her breath catching in her throat. She had been so consumed by her own emotions, by her guilt and longing, that she hadn't considered the larger consequences. Then Alana's hands clenched at her sides. You are on thin ice, Riaz. Your selfishness has jeopardized not only your reputation, but the GREMORY name itself. She took a step forward, her presence looming. Because of this, you are hereby temporarily stripped of your title as heiress. Riaz gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Mother, please. Then Alana raised a hand, silencing her. This is not permanent. Issei is currently in Shinto Tito for his college semester and will return for the Azazel Cup. When he returns and the game is over, he will pass judgment. It is his right to decide what happens next. Ria's legs nearly gave out from under her. The weight of her mother's words crushed her like a vice. She had lost everything. Her title, her family's trust, and now, she was at the mercy of the very man she had betrayed. Then Alana's eyes softened for just a moment, but her voice remained firm. I am disappointed in you, Riaz. More than I have ever been in my entire life. She shook her head, her next words cutting deeper than any wound. You were even worse than Riser. Riaz gasped as if she had been physically struck. Her mother's comparison to Riser Phoenix, the man she had fought so hard to escape, was the ultimate insult. She had always prided herself on being better than him, on standing for love and choice over duty and tradition. And yet, here she was, guilty of the very same selfishness and arrogance she had condemned in him. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but then Alana didn't offer her any comfort. Instead, she turned away. Gather your things. You will return to your college dorm immediately. You are not to return to the GREMORY estate until further notice. Riaz could do nothing but bow her head in shame. Yes, mother. Without another word, then Alana strode past her, leaving Riaz alone in the dimly lit room, drowning in the full weight of her actions. And now, it was time for Kaneko to face the wrath of her sister. Kaneko walked through the quiet streets of Kuo town. Her fists clenched at her sides. Her thoughts were a mess, emotions tangled in ways she didn't want to deal with. She had just walked away from Takemichi, her so-called boyfriend, who had once again shown just how utterly spineless he could be. She didn't even know why she bothered anymore. The cold night air did little to soothe the heat of her frustration. She just wanted to go home, crawl into bed, and forget about everything. But fate had other plans. A familiar presence washed over her like a heavy tide, making her steps falter. Then, a voice. Calm, direct, and uncharacteristically serious. Where are you coming from, Shirin? Kaneko's breath hitched as she turned to see her. Kuroka stood in the middle of the sidewalk, arms crossed, golden eyes locked onto her with an unreadable gaze. But not teasing, not playful. There was no usual smirk, no sly comment, no flirtatious drawl in her tone. Just a quiet pressing expectation. Kaneko stiffened. "What are you doing here?" she asked, ignoring the question. Kuroka didn't budge. "I asked first," she said, voice sharp. "Where were you?" Kaneko gritted her teeth. "None of your business." Kuroka's ears twitched, and for a second, Kaneko thought she saw something dangerous flash in her sister's eyes. "None of my business," Kuroka repeated, her voice low. "That's funny, coming from my little sister who's been making some really stupid choices lately." Kaneko's body tensed. She knew. Somehow, Kuroka knew. Don't lie to me, Shirin." Kuroka took a step forward, her presence suffocating. "Not after what you did." Kaneko looked away, shame and anger boiling together in her stomach. "I don't need a lecture from you," she muttered. Kuroka let out a slow breath, then shook her head. "Too bad," she said. "Because you're getting one." Kaneko braced herself. This wasn't going to be pretty. Kaneko's breath caught in her throat when Kuroka reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small stack of photos. Without a word, she flicked one to the ground between them. It was a picture of her and Takemichi at a cafe, sitting across from each other. "Who's this?" Kuroka asked, her tone eerily calm. "Because unless I'm blind, that's definitely not Issei." She narrowed her eyes. "Unless, of course, he went through some kind of delinquent crybaby phase." Kaneko said nothing, her lips pressed into a tight line. Kuroka's expression darkened. She let the first photo fall and flicked out another. One of Kaneko and Takemichi walking together in the park. Her head tilted toward him as if she was listening to whatever nonsense he was rambling about. Another photo showed them at the gym, Kaneko standing behind him, correcting his stance as he clumsily attempted a punch. Kuroka's tail flicked in agitation as she held up the final picture. Takemichi standing in front of Kaneko, his face twisted in fear as she easily held off some thug who had gotten too close to them. "And this?" Kuroka drawled, holding up the photo. "Who's this crybaby? Because from what I'm seeing, he doesn't have a shred of dignity or pride. You're out here training him, protecting him, propping him up, and for what?" Kaneko's fists tightened at her sides, her nails digging into her palms. Kuroka took a step closer, her voice dipping into something cold. "Tell me, Shirin. What the hell are you doing with him?" Kaneko took a slow breath, steadying herself. She knew Kuroka was angry, but she didn't expect her sister to be this serious about it. Before she could get another word out, Kuroka moved. With a sharp thrust of her palm, a blast of Senjutsu-infused energy exploded outward, kicking up a violent gust of wind that sent debris flying across the empty street. The force of the attack didn't touch Kaneko directly, but she felt it. Felt the sheer weight of Kuroka's power behind it. A warning. A clear message. Kaneko's breath hitched as Kuroka let her hand lower, her golden eyes glowing with barely restrained fury. "I'll ask again," Kuroka said, her voice sharp and controlled. "Who's the crybaby?" Kaneko swallowed hard, her body tensing. She knew lying would get her nowhere. Kuroka wasn't just angry. She was furious, and Kaneko did not doubt that if she lied again, her sister would show her exactly why she had been ranked an S-class stray devil. She clenched her fists. "His name is Takemichi. He's my boyfriend." Kuroka's expression didn't change. Her tail flicked once before she asked. "And you're training him?" Kaneko nodded hesitantly. "Yes." Kuroka tilted her head. "And does Issei know about this?" Kaneko froze. That single moment of hesitation, of fear, of guilt, was all Kuroka needed. Her lips curled into a humorless smirk as she let out a small, sharp laugh. "TCH, I knew it," she muttered. Then, she leveled Kaneko with a pointed stare. "So, let me guess as to what happened, Shirin. Let's see. You felt neglected because Issei was busy, right?" Kaneko's ears twitched slightly, but she remained silent. Kuroka continued, stepping closer. "And instead of talking to him about it, instead of waiting for him to finish handling all the responsibilities he never even wanted in the first place, you decided to go find someone weaker, someone who needed you. Someone who could make you feel strong, important, and wanted." Kaneko's breath caught in her throat. Kuroka scoffed. "And that's how you ended up with this pathetic excuse of a man. A crybaby with no pride, no power, no dignity." She crossed her arms. "Tell me, Shirin. Was it worth it? Was throwing away everything you built with Issei worth it for a boy who couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet without you holding him up?" Kaneko's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to deny it. To say that Kuroka was wrong, that she wasn't looking for someone weak, that Takemichi meant something more to her than just a way to fill the growing emptiness she felt inside. But she couldn't. Because deep down, Kuroka had hit the mark. Her silence was all the answer Kuroka needed. "TCH. Kuroka scoffed again, shaking her head. Unbelievable. I always knew you had a stubborn streak, but I didn't think you'd be this stupid, Shirin. Her golden eyes darkened, her tail flicking sharply behind her. Do you have any idea what kind of disaster you just set into motion? Kaneko bit her lip, looking down. Do you? Kuroka snapped, stepping forward. The sheer weight of her presence pressed down on Kaneko, making her ears flatten against her head. Do you realize what'll happen if the underworld gets wind of this? What if the factions that trust Issei find out that even his friends and former teammates in the GREMORY turned their backs on him? Kaneko flinched. Kuroka narrowed her eyes. Ria's already caused a mess with her little fling, and now you're caught up in one too. Do you think this won't piss the Yaokai faction? She let out a sharp laugh, void of any amusement. Hell, even I never did something this stupid when I was a stray. Kaneko's chest tightened. She knew. She knew what she had done. She knew that if this got out, it wouldn't just be her suffering the consequences. Issei's reputation, his trust, the faith that the other factions had in him. It would all be shaken. And after everything he'd been through. After everything he'd fought for. She had betrayed him. Kuroka let out a slow breath, her gaze never leaving Kaneko. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she tossed the photos onto the ground between them. Pick them up. She ordered. Kaneko hesitated before kneeling, gathering the scattered pictures in her trembling hands. As she did, Kuroka's voice came again. This time quieter but no less sharp. If you have even the slightest bit of guilt left in you, Shirin, she said, then you'd better figure out real quick how you're going to fix this. Because right now. She took a step back, turning away. You're no better than Ria's. Those words hit Kaneko harder than any physical attack ever could. She lowered her head, gripping the photos tightly. She wanted to argue, to defend herself. But she knew that nothing she said would change what she had done. Kuroka clicked her tongue. You've got a lot to think about, little sister. And if I were you? She shot Kaneko one last look over her shoulder. I'd start praying that Issei's heart is bigger than his sense of justice. Because right now. Her eyes narrowed. You don't deserve his forgiveness. And with that, Kuroka disappeared into the night, leaving Kaneko alone with nothing but her guilt. Kaneko stood frozen in place, gripping the photos so tightly they crumpled in her hands. If only she had done what Kuroka suggested. If only she had talked to Issei, been honest about her feelings, and tried to work things out instead of running to someone else. Maybe things could have been different. But now, it was too late. She clenched her teeth, her nails digging into her palms. The weight of her choices crushed her, pressing down on her chest like an unbearable force. That's when she heard footsteps approaching. Well, a familiar voice hummed, laced with amusement. So now you finally feel guilty. Kaneko turned, her breath catching in her throat as she saw Asia standing a few feet away, arms crossed, her usual gentle expression nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a smirk curling at her lips, something almost mocking in her gaze. Asia. Kaneko whispered, confused. Asia tilted her head, her blonde hair swaying slightly in the night breeze. It's funny. She continued, taking a step closer. How you suddenly feel bad now, after everything. But let's be real, Kaneko. You never really loved Issei, did you? Kaneko's eyes widened in shock. You treated him like an idiot. Asia continued, her tone sharp. You mocked him, hit him, made him feel like garbage. And for what? Because he cared about you? Because he never saw you as some child, but as someone he respected? She chuckled darkly. He wasn't perfect, sure, but at least he treated you normally and tried to help you despite you being an asshole to him for the majority of his time in your little group. Kaneko stepped back, stunned, but before she could respond, Asia suddenly moved. In an instant, she was right in front of Kaneko, grabbing her face with a grip much stronger than it should have been. Kaneko gasped, her eyes widening in panic when she saw Asia's emerald green eyes were no longer green. Instead, they were deep glowing purple. A shiver ran down Kaneko's spine. SHHH. Asia cooed softly, her voice dripping with something unnatural. Her eyes shimmered, and for a brief moment, Kaneko saw their eyes shift, spiraling like a hypnotic vortex. Kaneko's body wavered. Her mind grew fuzzy. Why am I so tired? Kaneko asked herself as she tried to move, to resist, but her limbs felt heavy. Her eyelids drooped. Her thoughts slowed. And then. Darkness. Stand up. Kaneko's body obeyed without hesitation. Her mind was fogged, her thoughts distant, but her body moved as commanded. She stood, her face blank, her eyes dull. A chuckle sounded in front of her. Oh, this is even better than I imagined. The voice purred in amusement. Rainer. The fallen angel, the one who had tormented Issei, now stood before Kaneko in Asia's form, her eyes gleaming with sadistic delight. She stepped closer, tilting Kaneko's chin up with a single finger. Such a strong little kitty reduced to an obedient doll. How adorable. Kaneko did not react. Rainer smirked. slap yourself. Without hesitation, Kaneko's right hand rose and struck her cheek, the sharp sound echoing through the quiet night. Rainer giggled. Again. Slap. Kaneko's head jerked slightly from the force, but she remained motionless otherwise, her expression unchanged. Rainer grinned wider. Now. Tell me what you are. Silence. Rainer's eyes glowed, swirling with power. Tell me what you are, little kitten. Kaneko's lips parted. I am a stupid baby who does nothing but take. Rainer let out a pleased hum. Perfect. Now, here is your task. Go to the brat's house, kill him, and make sure his parents aren't there, but if they are, knock them out. Then head back home and burn your clothes. Then go to sleep, and you'll forget this except for Asia comforting you. Kaneko nodded as she walked toward Takemichi's home, which made Rainer smile. Then, she pulled a black feather from her pocket. Excellent. A little something from my old body that still has some of my essences, which leaves me needing to adjust this body with the blood of those who will help this body become strong enough to clash with a Mao or defend myself, at least. Rainer said as she looked at the resurrection spell she was working on. The Twilight Healing's balance breaker can resurrect a person, but only if the body is still intact. This means that since she's a soul, she needs a body to use for her soul, so she needs to create one. This means using alchemy, which wasn't one of her strongest skills outside of seducing, assassinating, stabbing, and flying. I need DNA from that brat, Akeno, since her body will be perfect and it is a blend of fallen and devil DNA. So with her blood, as well as the blood of the GREMORY brat and the Nico, I'll be able to make the perfect body for me to defend myself and hopefully allow me to talk to Issei. Rainer said as she ignored the muffled screaming from the house. She heard bones breaking and cracking until the house was silent. Kaneko helped and headed home, which pleased Rainer. Excellent, and it's almost time, my love. Rainer said as she looked up at the full moon. It's almost time for your return, and I'll be here to apologize. Even if you don't forgive me, at least I'll have closure. Rainer said as she then summoned her wings and flew into the air, annoyed by the devil wings. TCH. I can't wait to have my body back. Rainer said before taking off into the night, waiting to get the ingredients needed to live again. Shinto Tito. You have to admit, despite this place becoming a battlefield for the Sekirei game, this was a good few months for really getting to know the girls and enjoying my new college classes. Issei Hyoudou said as he was enjoying a biscuit with eggs, bacon, and cheese, along with some fruit to go with it. Heh. I figured you would have forgotten about your college classes and decided to indulge and train your new peerage. By the way, how's your flock adjusting to their new powers? Santiago asked while he was enjoying his breakfast omelette as well. Oh, they're training hard to get ready for the Azazel Cup since it's coming up, which means it'll soon be time. Issei said as he pulled out the phone and checked out the teams. From what I can tell, there's an elimination round of the 64 teams that are participating before the 32 teams will begin to face each other, then the top 16, top 8, the final 4, and then the last 2 teams face each other for the Azazel Cup, which is a high honor, and the king of the winners are able to ask for one wish, as long as it's legal and not something crazy like ruling the world. Issei said with Santiago nodding while checking out the teams already in the roster. Are you sure your team will be ready? This isn't just about the other teams from the other factions, but also about your old team. Are you sure you're ready to face them? I am ready to confront them, and in truth, if they truly love their new lovers, then who am I to stand in their way? I shall cherish the memories we had with each other and support them with their new lovers, but it would be wrong and selfish of me to indulge in my anger towards them when I first learned of their betrayal. Issei said as he took a sip of his water. Santiago was amazed by how mature Issei sounded before Issei continued. Also, I have a new lover and a peerage that loves and respects me. I feel their feelings in my heart as well, and I feel complete. Issei said with joy, which Santiago understood since he felt the same with his flock and peerage before Issei looked at Santiago and asked. Do you love Asia Argento? What do you? Do you love her? Answer me that. Issei asked with no anger, which surprised Santiago before he replied. I do. Despite her lying to my face about her relationship with you, I actually did fall for Asia, but I ended it with her when she lied to me, and I gave her a chance to confess. Santiago said with annoyance in his voice, but Issei could tell that there was something else. You still love her, don't you? Santiago was quiet as he absorbed the question and sighed. I do. Then you should give her another chance. Look, if there's one thing I know about Asia, it is that no doubt the guilt is eating her alive, and she will pray and repent to apologize to both of us. No doubt she will want to get back together with you since, even if she asked me to take her back, I would say no, since it wouldn't be love that she feels towards me, not after betraying me. She would go to you. Give her another chance since I know Asia, and deep down, you want to get back together with her as well. Issei said, which surprised Santiago. The Red Dragon Emperor sounded more and more like a king every time they chatted. Heh. You really are a king. You're not the first to say that about me. Issei said, placing some bills on the table for the tip before getting up and stretching his arms. Santiago did the same after they finished up, and the two kings nodded as they shook each other's hands and began to depart. See you in the Azazel Cup, King of Shadows. And see you there as well, Red Dragon Emperor. Issei and Santiago said to each other as they made their way back to their territory and home, where their lovers and flocks would undoubtedly be training or relaxing. However, next week, the Azazel Cup will begin. The King of Shadows domain. Santiago smiled as he headed to his home, which he had inherited from his family and modified to suit his flock and lovers for the Azazel Cup, and afterward. I'm home. Santiago said before a voice shouted. Hey, boss. Glad to see you back from your date with Issei. Hahaha. Ow. Hey, what the fuck was that for Chio? Yuna asked while Hattie chuckled at her sisters arguing while they were playing Mortal Kombat. It was not a shock to Santiago that the Dark Trio loved the game, mostly for the free play, rather than the actual story. Hahaha. That's what you get for insulting his greatness. Hahaha. Kurenai said before Keiho stepped out. You three better not try to start a fight in the house again. Otherwise, I'll ask you three to join me in some training. Keiho said with her eyes closed as her killer aura was released, scaring the three troublemakers before they continued playing their game. This comment made Santiago amused by his queen's dark side, since he liked it when she let out her inner darkness. Keiho then turned to Santiago and turned back into a loving wife. Welcome home, dear. Did you have fun with Issei? How's he doing, by the way? The last time I saw him, he seemed to be having trouble with Musubi, since she seemed to faint when Issei tried to talk to her. Keiho said she was worried for her friend, since Musubi isn't stupid or dense, but she's very childish, which is the right word to say, since it fits her bubbly personality. Issei is fine. He's doing much better helping Musubi grow more mentally, since it would seem some of Yume's trauma inside of her is helping her mind grow faster, thanks to Issei's bond with her. Santiago said before turning to see the other members of his flock doing their own thing in the kitchen. Taki, Kaiha and Yushima were in the kitchen making what looked like snacks for the gaming group before Santiago headed to the backyard to see that Heihain was sleeping on the ground like a cat and was enjoying her morning nap. Sekirei number 73 Namiji and Sekirei number 54 Kurus were now some of the new members of the peerage, his rook and bishop, in that order. The two were deadly in combat since Namiji and Kurus enjoyed their master and trained to pay him back and face their future enemies in battles, especially the Azazel Cup. Santiago smiled at the duo and waved at them, which made the girls smile back as they were happy to train with their master. Oh, by the way, where are the others who became part of the group and the extra ones? Kurus asked before Santiago replied. Many of them needed some serious training more than I could do, so I asked Azazel to give them more training and upgrade their weapons. I've noticed that many of you rely on weapons more than different powers, such as elemental or hand-to-hand combat. I believe Azazel can help train them to bring out their full potential, and even I enjoy going there to train with them. Santiago said before seeing a text appear with a picture underneath the said text. Preparing for battle. Santiago smiled as he looked at them. Sekirei 74 Narashino, 34 Ishino, 28 Natsuka, 82 Hari, 19 Ikki, 94 Kaju, 103 Jusa, 72 Natsu, and 55 Saki. Heh. I can't wait to see how much they've grown. I'm happy that I have met all of you, and I am honored and happy to have you all fighting by my side in this Azazel Cup. Santiago said before Keiho joined in the sparring match. Hey Santiago. If you do win the Azazel Cup, what do you want to wish for? Keiho asked before Santiago replied. Santiago paused for a moment, gazing up at the sky as if searching for the right answer. He had thought about it before, but now that the question was directly in front of him, he felt the weight of it more than ever. I want. Santiago began before closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. I want to secure a future where all of us, my flock, my lovers, my friends, can live without the constant shadow of war or betrayal. A future where you and the rest of your sisters aren't just pieces on someone else's chessboard. Keiho watched him closely, sensing the depth of his emotions. That's noble, she said softly, reaching for his hand. Santiago smirked slightly. What? Expecting me to wish for something selfish? Keiho chuckled. A little. But that's what makes you special. You've been through enough to know its cost, yet you still look forward, still want to protect those who matter to you. Santiago squeezed her hand. I've already lost people before. When my brother betrayed my family, I was told that I was forced to become the heir of my home. It makes me wonder if I truly deserve to become a king. That is why I wish to challenge Issei Hyoudou, Vali Lucifer, and Seirag Baal. In a way, it's to test myself to see if I am ready to become a king. Keiho smiled, leaning in close. Then let's make sure you win. Their moment was interrupted when Yuna's voice rang from inside. Oi. If you're done being all lovey-dovey, get back here. You're missing the best part of the fight. Santiago sighed but grinned. Duty calls. Keiho chuckled and followed him back inside. The week before the Azazel Cup would be filled with training, strategy, and preparation. However, for Santiago, it was more than just a tournament. It was a battle to carve out a place for himself and his family in a world that had tried to cast them aside. And he intended to win. Now in the Red Dragon's domain. You've really improved, Karasuba. I'm proud of how far you've come. Issei said, which made the Black Sekirei smile. She was honored to receive the warmth and affection of her Ashikabi. Do you think that if I were still my old self, I would be able to receive this affection and love and treasure it like the others? Karasuka asked since Issei had told her about her past self and Miya-sama, who was known as the queen of his group. Issei looked at Karasuba with a calm but knowing gaze, his draconic eyes piercing through the lingering doubts in her heart. He could feel the conflict within Karasuba. An echo of the bloodstained path she once walked, the weight of her old identity, clashing with the happiness she now held in her grasp. No. Issei answered honestly. The old you. Cold, ruthless, and obsessed with the thrill of battle and power. Would have pushed me away. You would have seen love as a weakness, something to be discarded in favor of the next fight. Karasuba tensed slightly, but Issei didn't stop. He stepped closer, gently placing a hand on her cheek. But you're not that person anymore. You've changed. You've learned that power isn't just about wielding a blade or cutting down enemies. One thing I've learned is that power is meaningless without purpose, but there are two types of people with power. One side wishes to protect what they desire, and the other side only cares about becoming stronger and gaining more power. However, both sides are necessary since what is the point of having power if it doesn't have a purpose? However, I've also had to grow stronger to continue protecting my loved ones, so in my eyes, power is about protecting what matters to you. And you do treasure this, don't you? Karasuba's gray eyes wavered before she let out a chuckle. You're so sentimental sometimes, you know that. But there was no venom in her words, only a quiet acceptance as Karasuba leaned into his touch and loved the warmth that radiated from Issei's hand. I used to think love was something soft, something fragile. But now, I understand it's the strongest thing there is. Issei smiled. Exactly. That's why you deserve this. Deserve us. He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, making the usually fearless Black Sekirei's cheeks tint pink. Before the moment could linger, a familiar voice interrupted. Oh ho. And here I thought I was your favorite, my dear husband. Miya teased, stepping into the courtyard with a knowing smirk. Karasuba scoffed, turning away with a huff. Don't get the wrong idea, Miya. I'm just confirming what I already knew. Miya chuckled as she walked up beside Issei, linking her arm around his. Of course, Karasuba, but I must say, it's quite adorable seeing you so flustered. Karasuba glared at her, but there was no real heat in it. It was just a kind of playful irritation shared between two rivals who had long since become family. Issei grinned. You both are important to me. And that's why I need you both at your best for the Azazel Cup. Miya's expression softened, though a glint of excitement flickered in her amethyst eyes. We will be ready, my love. But I do wonder. Are you ready? Issei smirked, clenching his fist as a crimson aura flickered around him. Oh, I know I am. With only a week left before the tournament, every moment counted. Training, tactics, teamwork. It all had to come together. Because when the Azazel Cup began, there would be no holding back. Issei Hyoudou, the Red Dragon Emperor, was ready to stake his claim. Matsu wanted to join in because she wanted to join Issei's peerage and because she was also a kindred spirit in Issei. Matsu loved the pervy side in the sack, where she learned so much about her husband that even Karasuba and Miya turned red when Matsu explained her night of passion in very thorough detail. Shy and Sai were a deadly duo that worked well together. Issei was surprised to see the shy sister be very kinky in the bed, while the normally tomboyish sister was very shy in the sheets like Tsukiyumi when they had their moments together. However, it wasn't just them who joined Issei's flock. 5 others also reacted to his aura. The first was Kazuhana since she had been reacting to him after day 1. The two spent more time together, which led to them healing from their past loves and rekindling their hearts. Kazuhana was honored to become one of his lovers. Even though Issei had many lovers like Santiago, he still made time for each and every one of them. Yomi was the second one since she enjoyed spending more time with him, thanks to Issei and his team saving her when they came to save Chio and Yuzum. Yomi was shocked to see Issei wasn't a human anymore, but still saw the kindness and compassion in his eyes when he offered a place for her to stay and never tried to take advantage of her state of mind and let her roam freely around the mansion which Yomi loved since she enjoyed training with Issei's team and bonding with them, which led to Yomi asking Issei to wing her, which he did, and the Reaper was so happy that her powers grew after being winged. As for the last 3 Sekirei, Issei was surprised to see that 2 of Higa's Sekirei, Toyoma and Ichiya, were at his front door. This led to the 2 bowing to Issei and asking to be winged. Also, one looked similar to the Raiden twins due to them wearing dominatrix attire. Their hairstyle was the same, but their eyes were different since one was dark pink and the other was dark blue. Apparently, the 3rd Sekirei was Hibiki. Hikari, the Raiden twins, had become fused when they were killed by Karasuba and Amabane while breaking into the former Ashikabi's business and killing Seo as well. Fortunately, when the Jinkei resurrected them, they were also fused, meaning their minds, powers, and bodies became one. This is why they are one person instead of 2, and their true name is Karabiki. Issei was honored to have them as part of his flock, willing to spar with them, and glad to help them as well, especially Karabiki, since the fuse being revealed that she was actually separated into the 2 Sekirei Hibiki and Hikari, to learn how to control their powers. All in all, Issei was glad to have met them all, and even more honored that the Sekirei game ended with Mikagami wanting to be Santiago's foe in the last battle. Santiago was impressed with Mikagami's utilization of her unique strategies, but sadly, her team lost, and she did so with dignity. However, the King of Darkness and the Red Dragon Emperor weren't the only ones preparing for the Azazel Cup. Kuo Town. Hyoudou Residence. In the dimly lit alchemist lab beneath the Hyoudou residence, a sinister yet triumphant smile graced Asia Argento's face. Or rather, the face of the one controlling her. Rainer, the former fallen angel, stood before a large stone table draped with a cloth that concealed her greatest work. With a flourish, she yanked the cloth away, revealing the body she had spent so long perfecting. Lying before her was a fully formed pristine version of herself. Rainer reborn. But this was no mere recreation of her past self. No, this body was stronger, more refined, and more powerful than before. This is perfection. Rainer whispered, her fingers grazing the smooth skin of her soon-to-be new vessel. She had spent the past few weeks crafting this masterpiece of a body thanks to the alchemist books that were in the GREMORY library. Using the DNA from her old feather. One that Issei Hyoudou had once kept. She had reconstructed her essence. But she hadn't stopped there. She had enhanced herself. Akeno Himejima's DNA infused this new body with lightning manipulation, a power Rainer had long coveted. Ria's GREMORY's DNA granted her a fragment of the power of destruction, something that would make her a threat to even the strongest devils. Kaneko Taoju's DNA allowed her access to Senjutsu, increasing her physical prowess and granting her control over life energy. Sona Citri's DNA provided the powers to wield water as well, and perhaps control ice like the Mao Leviathan, though that last part was a bit of a hypothesis. This body wasn't just a new body. This new body was an ascension. Rainer chuckled, her dark violet eyes gleaming with anticipation. Issei, I'll be back soon, better than ever, and hopefully, you can forgive me for the pain I caused your soul for so many years. She turned to the ancient soul transfer and spellbook she had stolen from the GREMORY library, its pages lined with forbidden knowledge. The spell she had chosen required one final component. An item of sentimental value, something deeply connected to the soul being transferred. And she had just the thing. Rainer reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver charm bracelet. The very same one Issei had given her on their first and only date, before she had betrayed him. For a brief moment, something almost akin to nostalgia flickered in her heart, but she crushed it, since it was not the time to dwell on the past and think about what could have been. It was time to start living in the present. That was a different life. This ritual is my rebirth. She placed a bracelet on the new body's wrist, feeling the magic react immediately. The air in the room crackled, and a faint pulse of energy spread through the body. Perfect. Now. Let's begin. Rainer spread out her arms, the dark aura of her fallen angel powers flickering around her like black fire. She chanted in Enochian, the ancient language of angels and devils alike. I call upon the bonds of spirit and vessel. Let the soul be freed from its cage. As flesh is made anew in fire and night. By the will of the fallen, let my soul take flight. The ground beneath her rumbled, glowing with deep purple runes as the spell took hold. Asia's body. Her current prison. Shuddered violently, her golden light clashing against the dark magic. Rainer gritted her teeth. TCH. Even asleep, that brat soul tries to hold me. She placed a hand on Asia's forehead and forcefully suppressed her voice. A choked whimper escaped Asia's lips, but her resistance faded. With a final surge of power, Rainer felt her soul being pulled from Asia's body. Like an invisible force ripping her away. The sensation was strange. It wasn't pain but rather a hollow, stretching feeling, as if she were being peeled away layer by layer. And then. It happened. A blinding flash of dark purple light filled the room as Rainer's soul left Asia's body. And shot straight into the new vessel. Asia's body collapsed onto the floor, unconscious but alive. And then. The new body of Rainer's eyes twitched before opening as she gasped, feeling the air in her lungs, actual lungs, for the first time. Raynor was feeling the rush of new sensations. Power. Strength. A pulse of raw, destructive energy ran through her veins. Raynor sat up slowly, flexing her new fingers. The lightning sparks at her fingertips were unlike anything she had controlled before. She clenched her fists. And the power of destruction flared briefly, causing a ripple in the air around her. Then, she smirked. Raynor had done it. She was back. Raynor stood up, stretching her new body, relishing the feeling of having a form completely her own. This body wasn't stolen. This was hers. Walking over to a nearby mirror, she took a good look at herself. She was still Raynor, but more. Her dark violet eyes glowed faintly, and her long black hair now had streaks of crimson and white running through it. Side effects of the devil and Nekomata DNA. Her skin was perfect, her body stronger, and her wings no longer just black, but tinged with purple lightning. It was better than having cat ears and a tail, that's for sure. Raynor ran a hand over her bare stomach, feeling the power thrumming beneath her skin. She turned back to Asia's unconscious form, smirking. You should thank Issei, you know. If it weren't for him, I'd kill you and steal your sacred gear. She nudged Asia's sleeping form with her foot, but the girl didn't stir. Raynor's smirk widened. But don't worry, sweetheart. You'll wake up soon enough. And when you do, well, let's say things are going to be very different. I was the only reason you didn't know anything, but I want you to remember certain things like, say, you telling Kaneko to kill her boyfriend. Raynor turned away, picking up a black cloak she had prepared beforehand and draping it over herself. Now then. I think it's time I reintroduce myself to my lover and see how he is at his new college. With a final glance back at Asia, she flicked her wrist, summoning a portal of dark light. And stepped through, vanishing into the night. Raynor was reborn. And the world was about to find out just what that meant. The underworld capital. Lilith. Sona Citri was nervously standing in the meeting area. The 64 teams that would be accepted after passing the qualifying exams by the kings, if said peerages were posted for the factions to see, would soon be posted, and Sona already knew that there was a chance that not only the gods of the other factions, but also the leaders of the biblical faction could enter said competition. If Sona saw that her sister competed, she knew she was screwed, which is why as soon as Azazel appeared on the stage, he smiled as he greeted them all. Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to the special night before the Azazel Cup. Now, before we get into the fun of beating the snot out of each other, allow me to explain the purpose behind the Azazel Cup. Azazel said before dimming the lights and projecting images of damage throughout the world after Trihexa's defeat and Chaos Brigade's fall. Azazel's voice grew somber, a rare tone from the usually carefree Fallen. These images. He said as war-torn cities, shattered battlefields, and broken sanctuaries faded in and out of view. Are the aftermath of the final battles against Trihexa and the remnants of Chaos Brigade. Even in victory, the scars left behind are deep. Sona's grip tightened on the clipboard she held. She recognized several of the ruins. One was once a devil stronghold, another the remains of a sanctuary in heaven. The silence in the room was heavy. That's why this cup was born. Azazel continued. To shift our strength from war to unity. A game where pride, tactics, and teamwork replace bloodshed. The Azazel Cup will bring together the most powerful teams from across the supernatural world, not to fight for survival, but for evolution. Growth. Then the screen shifted again to a glowing tournament bracket that was still mostly blurred, with names yet to be filled. But let's not kid ourselves. This is still a battle of the best. Azazel grinned again. And speaking of the best. I know you're all dying to see who made it past the qualifiers. Gasps echoed throughout the crowd as the first names started appearing. Powerful teams from Asgard, Heaven, and even the Yokai and other pantheons. Sona scanned, her eyes jumping from name to name. Her heart stopped when she saw it. Team Wings of Fate. King. Issei Hyoudou. The ringing in her ears drowned out the noise of the hall. He actually did it. She whispered. The name shouldn't have shocked her, not after all he had done, but seeing it officially carved into the board of champions for the Azazel Cup made it real. Then, another name appeared. Team Darkness. King. Santiago of the North. Wait, Santiago. Muttered Riaz, who had just walked in beside her. That can't be that Sombra, can it? Sona looked over, then raised an eyebrow. You know him. Riaz didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the board, a mixture of confusion and recognition. He spoke to Asia since the two hung out at times. Ahahaha. Riaz laughed nervously because she couldn't really say that Santiago was Asia's boyfriend, which would cause a huge scandal in the underworld. But before Sona could ask some more, a new commotion broke out near the entrance. Gasper, no Gasparina, walked through, confidently flanked by Roswis and Ravel Phoenix. Behind them was the unmistakable form of Benitsabasa and the ever-stoic Akitsu. Issei's team. Sona muttered, stunned at the bizarre and powerful collection of women walking with pride and unity. Across the hall, Kaneko stared in silence. A small part of her chest ached as she looked at them. Issei was walking with Mia at his side. She wore her normal attire, but with light armor on her arms and legs, keeping a hand on her sword's hilt at all times. Akitsu and Hamura were walking in their normal attire as the fire Sekirei got some swoons and wolf calls from the guys and girls until the bishop showed a ring on their fingers, making the calls die. Akitsu had a small smile appear on her lips while Hamura stifled her laughter since she saw many versions of them from her days as a hostess at the bars. Karasuba and Tsukiyumi stayed close to Issei but also envied Mia for being the one next to him the most. They wanted to walk beside him too. Musubi was excited as she looked at the people around them and couldn't wait to fight them, as was Benitsubasa as she tightened the combat gloves on her hands. Yahan was currently in Issei's shadow as a precaution in case anyone tried to harm him. She took her job seriously, and given how others would try to attack him before the tournament even began, she'd no doubt ensure that no one would dare to try and harm her Ashikabi. Achima and Matsu were checking out their competition and could tell that many competitors could challenge them. But thanks to the training Issei has given them, the Sekirei are no longer limited to being stronger than the average human. Issei was able to beat Mia and Karasuba in training, and he used his balance breaker to make sure that Mia's special move didn't destroy the city. Kusano was walking with authority but also observing the people around her. She held a potted plant, a Venus flytrap, in her hands. Kuno was smiling as she had her microphone cane with her since she was wearing a spiffy suit that complemented her dragon form and power. She was glad that Azazel helped her truly bring out her full power since she hated her weaker self and how pathetic she really was. If it hadn't for Azazel and Issei for taking her in, she would have been like many of the other Sekirei, naive and foolish, thinking they were strong without realizing that humans could counter them if they had magic or a sacred gear. This is going to be fun, and I think we're about to get a show since I spy a certain crimson-haired brat. Kuno said in her mind as she narrowed her eyes at the GREMORY peerage, more specifically Akeno, since she could never understand why the daughter of Barkwheel would betray someone who had done so much for them, since betraying someone after being with them through so much makes them even worse than Karasuba was before Issei defeated her in battle. Ureha, Shai, and Sai had similar thoughts as they glared at Irina, Zenobia, and Asia. They were well aware of Issei's former bond with them, so if they thought they could play the guilty card, then they had another thing coming. Kazuhana, Yomi, Toyotama, Ichiya, and Karabiki were also there. Still, they were personally more of the bodyguards, since they were also in the reserves as substitute members, should any of the other members of said peerage be unable to battle. Issei was also getting eyes as he was wearing a formal general attire that made Issei look like he was Oda Nobunaga from the Fate series, since it also had dragon markings to suit his role as the Red Dragon Emperor, all thanks to Yuzume for the design and Issei enchanting it to be usable in combat. Ayano was so shocked by this since she didn't expect to see a massive change in the pervert that she saw in the pictures, since he looked more like a general, rather than a nobody. No way. This is Issei Hyoudou. He looks completely different from the last time I saw his picture, since I wasn't expecting that nobody actually to show up here, but given his choices for peerage members, they're probably all weak, since they'd probably rely on cheap skills and talents, while using their bodies to get ahead in life, no actual training and experience like I did. At the same time, Greg was shocked as well, since he couldn't believe that Issei had changed so much from what he had learned about the cowardly kid hiding behind that armor, while he gritted his teeth in annoyance. It doesn't matter since this guy probably just decided to recruit the first powerful lady he saw. He only cares about a woman's physical appearance, not the inside. People may believe he actually cared about Rias and Akeno, but if he were a real man, he would have known about their loneliness and actually owned up to it like a man. Greg said in his mind as he glared at Issei before the Red Dragon Emperor looked at Sona and smiled at her as he ignored Greg. Sona. It's wonderful to see you again. How's your college experience been? Issei asked, surprising Sona before she replied. It's been enjoyable, but I do miss being able to make changes like I did back in the student council. How has your college experience been so far? Sona said, with Issei replying. Oh, I've loved it since I was able to grow and gain a wonderful peerage of beautiful and powerful people who I trust to watch my back. Issei said before he went to the group, excited to see one of the great heroes and catch up with Seirag, who was impressed by how much Issei has changed after the past couple of months. Rias wanted to go over to Issei and welcome him back, but she knew she had no right to after what she had done to him. This made her wonder if she even had the right to speak to him and ask for forgiveness if that was even possible at this point. Asia, on the other hand, saw Santiago wave at her and gesture for her to follow him, which Asia did to see that he was on the balcony enjoying the night air, before feeling a deadly aura of bloodlust to look and see Keiho smiling with her nagana out as she had her eyes closed. Still, Asia could have sworn she saw a demon mask behind the smiling Sekirei. Don't screw this up again, Brad. Heiho said before leaving the two alone with Asia, letting out a breath of relief she didn't know she was holding until she looked to see Santiago gesturing for Asia to join him. You know, I had some time to think, and granted, I didn't feel happy about being some Reben guy, especially after the way you treated Issei as well, but despite what you did to me, I still love you. Santiago said, shocking Asia, who still held feelings for the King of Shadows. But before she could say anything, Santiago stopped her. I'm giving you one chance to make things right. Talk to Issei since he deserves to know your reasons why you betrayed him after everything that he has sacrificed for you. He deserves to be told at least why. Santiago said before looking at Asia. She cupped her left cheek before leaning in and kissing her forehead, causing Asia to blush wildly. Santiago then left Asia alone as he went back to join the party. Asia looked at Issei, who was chatting with Sayarag and Vali while laughing as if he had been told a joke. This made Asia's heart ache since she remembered when she would have loved to see him smile. Now, she knew she had messed up her shot at getting back together with the person who not only saved her, but also gave her things she always wanted. Home. Love. A family. These are the three things that Asia never had in life before meeting Issei, and now she regrets everything she did, while wishing she could go back to her past self and stop her from making a horrible mistake. I've always been the one who's had to be protected, since I'm such a coward who doesn't know how to stand up for herself, but now I'm done hiding behind others. From now on, I'll be standing up for myself. Asia said as she headed inside to see Riaz walking on the stage with her group to be introduced as one of the great heroes. But not everyone believed that, especially since the word had spread like wildfire. Hey. You shouldn't be here after what you did to the real hero of your group. One devil yelled as they got others of all different factions to bash the GREMORY group, which resulted in food and rocks being thrown at them until a wall of fire protected them, which shocked the group until they saw Issei walking up on the stage with Tsukiyumi, Homura, and Kazuhana, before the wall died with Tsukiyumi using a water to clean the girls up, as well as their dated before Kazuhana, and Homura began to dry them off like a massive blow dryer. Thank you, girls. I appreciate you coming up here to help them. Issei said, and Riaz wanted to thank them until Tsukiyumi pulled Riaz close to her and whispered in her ear. Don't go thinking this means we forgive you for what you did to Issei, since we saw his memories of you all, and trust me when I say we're more passive in releasing our anger, since Miya and Karasuba are more. Well, let's just say that they wouldn't mind slicing off your head. Know that the only reason you're still breathing is because of Issei and his bleeding heart, so we don't trust or respect you. However, we thank you for sending Issei to us since he changed our lives for the better. Tsukiyumi said before the trio continued cleaning them off. Issei then began to speak to the audience. Listen. I understand. Issei said with a calm look in his eyes. He continued reassuring the audience, who had begun the scuffle by raising his hand to calm the growing murmurs as the crowd stood in stunned silence. His voice was steady and resolute. No longer the boy many once mocked, but a leader standing tall among legends. Listen. I understand. Issei said, his eyes sweeping across the hall. I understand your anger. Your disappointment. The betrayal you feel on my behalf. There were gasps, whispers, and some shouts of then why forgive them. From a few passionate voices scattered throughout the crowd. Issei nodded slowly. Because holding on to hate won't change anything. It won't heal the wounds. It won't undo the pain. He glanced back at Riaz and the rest of the GREMORY group, his gaze firm but not cruel. They hurt me. That's true. And there were nights I thought I wouldn't make it out of that pain. But if I let that hatred grow, if I choose vengeance over growth, then I become no different than the Cows Brigade. No better than those who spread chaos just for the sake of pain. The hall grew silent again. We're entering a new era. The Azazel Cup isn't just a tournament. It's a symbol. Of unity. Of progress. Of strength built not on the corpses of our enemies, but on the bonds we forge with one another. Issei's voice grew stronger with every word. I didn't forgive them because they deserved it. I forgave them because I refused to let them hold power over my heart any longer. Forgiveness isn't a weakness. It's freedom. He turned back to the crowd, eyes shining like crimson flames. If we keep tearing each other down over past sins, then we're never going to build anything new. Peace can only happen if we stop being chained by yesterday's mistakes. That includes my own. Then, in a softer tone. But don't mistake this for blind trust. Forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. It means I've chosen to move forward. And I hope, in time, we all can. A beat of silence. Then a slow clap began. First from Vali, then from Sarayarg, and eventually spreading like wildfire through the audience. Even Azazel was nodding with a rare look of approval, muttering. You really have grown up, kid. Some still looked uncertain, some even angry, but the mood had shifted. Issei stood tall in the center of it all, the storm of his past behind him and the fires of the future, lighting the path ahead. As the applause still echoed through the grand hall, Asia stepped forward from the crowd, her heart thudding loudly in her chest. Her hands trembled as she clutched the hem of her robe, every step toward Issei feeling heavier than the last. Her throat was dry and her legs felt like lead, but she pressed on. She saw him, Issei, standing near Sarayer Ganvali, laughing again. The warmth in his eyes made her chest tighten. He looked free, stronger, happier. And yet, she couldn't stop the words forming in her mouth. I need to tell Issei. He needs to know. Why? But just before she could speak, before her lips could call out his name, a sudden gust of heat stopped her in her tracks as she heard a familiar voice. Asia Argento. The voice was clear, calm, and sharp as a blade wrapped in fire. Standing between her and Issei was Ravel Phoenix, dressed in a regal combat uniform adorned with flame motifs and the sigil of House Phoenix, her golden hair flowing like a living fire. A golden circlet shimmered faintly on her brow. A symbol of her role, not just as a noble, but as a king now. Her eyes, normally so soft and intelligent, were cold. Focused. Ravel. Asia whispered. Please, I just want to talk to. You had your chance. Ravel's voice cracked ever so slightly. Months of chances to talk to him. Asia flinched but stood her ground. I know. I was weak. No. You chose. Ravel interrupted as she stepped towards Asia and directed Asia's eyes at her own. You chose to turn your back on the one person who gave you a place to call home in his own family and never asked for anything in return. On the man who bled for you, who cried over your body when you died, who stood between you and death more times than I can count. The man who loved you purely and without condition. The heat from Ravel's magic intensified, not maliciously, but emotionally. Painfully. Tears welled in Asia's eyes. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And so you left him. Ravel's voice dropped lower, more personal. You weren't the only one afraid, Asia. Do you think I wasn't terrified or heartbroken when when Riser threw himself in front of me during the battle with Trihexa? Do you think I didn't beg him to let someone else take that hit? Asia's breath hitched. I lost one of my two brothers, Asia. I felt a part of my being die when my brother died, taking a hit for me. Ravel said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. Riser is gone. And all I could do was scream while the destructive power of Trihexa took him. But I swore I'd honor him by living. Not in fear, but in strength. And that's why I became a king. Not for pride, not for glory. But because he believed in me, just like Issei once believed in you. Asia opened her mouth to speak, but Ravel stepped closer. I respect him. I admire him. And more than anything, I love him. Not because he's powerful, but because he showed me that I could be more than just someone's little sister. He saw the leader in me when I was his manager and encouraged me to become a king when I wanted to become his bishop, since he saw more of my potential than I knew in myself. That's why I entered this tournament. I will face him in the Azazel Cup. As his equal. Then she leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. Can you say the same, Asia? Can you look him in the eyes and say you're his equal? Or are you just hoping for a second chance you haven't earned? The question hit like a divine hammer. Asia's knees buckled and she almost fell to the floor if not for Issei helping her stand, her hands over her chest as tears streamed down her cheeks. I don't know. Asia whispered. I don't know if I deserve it. Ravel looked at her for a long moment, then sighed softly. The fire around her faded. Then prove it. Not with words. But with actions. That's what Issei taught me. You want to reach him. Her eyes narrowed. Then walk the path. Don't cry at the gate and expect to be let in. With that, Ravel turned and walked past her, back toward her team. Her expression softened just a little as she looked back. He's not the same boy you left behind, Asia. And maybe that's a good thing. Because now, you'll need to fight to catch up to the man he's become. Asia, still standing, but her knees feeling so heavy, stared at the ground. Her heart ached with guilt but also flickered with the smallest spark of determination. She had lost her chance to speak tonight, but perhaps, just perhaps, she hadn't lost everything yet. Hours later. Shinto Tito. After the speech from the Red Dragon Emperor and a surprise visit from the fan club, Issei shed tears when they showed him a picture of Drake and Issei fighting together in the final battle, which they wanted to give him to remember his best friend. Issei thanked the kids for it, as he was grateful for their support and cheers. It was also nice for Issei to reunite with old faces such as Sayarag, Bali, Sona, and even Ravel, who were looking to face him in the Azazel Cup, especially since many of them were interested in facing the Sekirei as well. Eventually, the opening ceremony ended with the elimination round setups being passed around, with Issei's team being set up against Team Black Satan of Darkness Dragon King, which was formed by Hades, which surprised Issei that they would be facing a group that the Greek god of death crafted in the first round, but Issei didn't mind, especially the girls, since they were forming a strategy that would allow them to take them on, since apparently they only have one king, one queen, one bishop, one knight and one rook. There were no pawns, which surprised Issei and Mia, since they would have figured that the team would have had at least some capable pawns. However, it seems they're probably going to rely on skills and experience over a sizable group. Alright, so according to this, the area we'll be fighting in is a representation of a plains field. It looks like they're also going to provide a small army of any species to our opponents to cover their pawn shortage as well as ours, since this challenge is known as war. According to the purpose of this one, the kings are given forces to lead into battle, but they are also used as we see fit in this battle. For us, we'll be separating our forces into 3 teams, the first being on the battlefield, the second being the far-ranged mages and archers at the top of the cliff area, which is where Mia will be leading, and finally, for the third group, it'll be a special team put together that'll be a secret for now, since no doubt Hades made this army, so he would have spies to learn of our strategy. Issei explained that the group was shocked until Issei used a pair of chopsticks and threw them at the open window, only for them to impact an object, which was revealed to be the head of a skeleton, as it then crumbled to dust. I should have known that they wouldn't be interested in playing fair, Mia said, with Karasuba annoyed before Issei told them not to worry, since he figured that some of the gods and teams would be spying on them, so they would prove them wrong in the arena. This excited the girls, especially Karasuba, who was still kind, but her old battle lust made her excited for this game, so they all went to sleep, excited to be one of the first teams facing off in the first round of the elimination duels. However, Issei stayed up a bit longer since he wanted to go for a walk to clear his head. He stopped at the park, where he met Akitsu, and sat on the bench. He smiled at the memories he made here with not just the girls, but also Santiago before sighing and looking at the great cherry blossom tree in the park. I know you're there. You've been following me ever since the party. Come out and show yourself before I force you, Issei said while igniting some flames in his hand, which made the suspicious person flinch as they put their hands out in surrender. Wait. I'm just here to talk, not harm. Just don't hurt me, okay? The figure said before they stepped out from behind the tree until Issei saw them reach for the hood of their cloak, which led to his eyes widening in shock, and he saw a face that once plagued his dreams and nightmares. An attractive young woman with dark violet eyes and a curvaceous, slender body. She had long, silky black hair with red and white stripes of color that reached down to her hips and possessed 2 black feathered wings that also seemed to be tinted with lightning, and wore black strap-like objects around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heeled boots. The woman smiled as she waved a nervous hand at him, as if reuniting with a friend after so long. Hi Issei. It's been a while, the woman said. Issei clenched his left hand when he saw that face and looked back at her with annoyance, which the woman seemed to expect. How the hell are you here in the land of the living, Rainer? Issei asked as his eyes glowed with Rainer swallowing her spit, as she had mentally prepared for this many times in her head, but now those preparations didn't mean anything, since Issei looked like he was ready to kill her for a second time. I understand you want to kill me, but will you at least hear me out? That's all I ask, Rainer said, with Issei stopping himself as he summoned Ascalon halfway already until he placed his sword back into his pocket space and sighed. Fine. Start talking, Rainer, but try anything, and you're dead, Issei said, with Rainer mentally letting out a breath she didn't know she was holding before sitting on the park bench. She pulled out a picnic basket from her cloak and offered some food. Care for some food while we talk? I didn't poison them. I didn't. Do you really think I'd stoop that low to kill you? You literally disguised yourself as a high school student to get close to me and killed me when no one was around. What do you think? Issei asked. Rainer closed her mouth as she sighed and let her head drop. Okay, you got a point there, Rainer said before she ate some of it herself, which she had to admit was a lot better than she thought before offering some to Issei, who sighed and sat across from her, pulled one of the pork buns, and ate it. Not bad, Issei said, with Rainer smiling until Issei spoke to Rainer again. Now tell me, how are you even alive? You died. I saw you, Issei said, Rainer sighing and replying. Well, that's a bit of a long story, Rainer said before beginning her story. It all started after Riaz had destroyed my body, Rainer said as she began to recount the events that happened after she died to Issei, who only sat and listened to her story. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.